Okay. Well, I'm happy for you to get the first vid in there, Lucid. You just gotta give me a link. Yeah. That's all it takes. Sounds like impatience? No.
Aggressively, we all defend the role.
Wow, the Killers. I haven't heard them in a while.
Regrettably, time's come to send you on your way.
Yeah.
You've seen it all. Bonfires of trust, flash floods of pain. It doesn't really matter, don't you worry, it'll all work out. No, it doesn't even matter, don't you worry, that ain't what it's all about. We hope you enjoyed your stay. It's good to have you with us, even if it's just for the day. We hope you enjoy your stay. Outside the sun is shining, seems like heaven ain't far away. It's good to have you with us. Even if it's just for the day.
It's a nice song. Okay. There we go. Anyone else got a link for me, or should I just play what I've got lined up? Okay.
Did you know that the FBI has a world-class code-breaking team? Basically, their job is to decode any encrypted evidence.
Got one. Fair enough, Lucid.
Okay, class. If you're in the South, you say, "Hey, feller, give me a Bud Light." Hey, feller, give me a Bud Light. In New York, you say, "Hey, give me a Bud Light." You got a problem with that?
Bud Light, you got a problem with that.
In East LA, you say, "Give me a Bud Light, Holmes."
Give me a Bud Light, Holmes.
More importantly, if somebody asks you for a Bud Light, you say, "Don't speak English."
Refreshingly smooth. Bud Light's always worth it.
Bud Light?
Moonlight.
Bud Light.
Moonlight.
That poor Gardevoir.
So imagine coming across a piece of evidence that appears to have secret
How are the
messages
volume
embedded
levels? Are they
inside of
good
it.
for everyone?
It's the job of these brainiacs on
Yeah.
the decoding team
I
to
heard.
go in there and figure out what those secret messages are. Now, this decoding team is incredibly good. But periodically, they do run into riddles, if you will, that are just way too difficult and they can't figure them out. And when this happens, they will often appeal to the public and say, hey, anyone out there, if you can solve this riddle, let us know. And so today's story will involve
Is
one of those
there
types
anybody
of
out
impossible
there?
riddles. And if you stay till
Turn
the end
it
of
up
the
or
video,
turn me
you'll
up?
actually see the mystifying evidence, and I'll show you where you need to go online to literally help the FBI solve this riddle. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button takes their full kitchen trash bag out to go out to the dumpster, immediately throw an open container of clam chowder into their empty can before they can come back and put a new bag in. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. At around 5 o'clock in the evening on June 25th, 1999, a man named Ricky McCormick stumbled into an emergency room in St. Louis, Missouri, with his hand over his chest, complaining that he couldn't breathe. He said he had asthma, and earlier that day he had been cutting the grass, and so maybe that had caused a flare-up. But either way, here he was in a lot of discomfort, saying, you know, I need help. Ricky was 41 years old, and for his whole life, he had had heart and lung problems, and so him arriving in this state in the ER was actually not all that uncommon for him. And so this hospital did what they did with anyone who came in complaining that they couldn't breathe. They immediately took Ricky to a back exam room, and they hooked him up to all these monitors to make sure his heartbeat was steady and that his oxygen levels were plenty high. And once Ricky was in the exam room getting hooked up, he started acting really agitated, and he kept looking around the room like he was scared that someone was going to jump out at him. And he was also sweating profusely, and whenever he did speak, he spoke so quickly no one could really understand him. But despite Ricky's odd behavior, the heart monitor showed his heart was beating steadily, his oxygen levels were perfectly fine, and when the doctor came in and examined Ricky, even though he clearly saw that something was off about Ricky, there wasn't any sign that there was anything physically wrong with Ricky. And so the doctor and the nurses agreed that whatever was going on with Ricky had to be psychological. And as it happened, Ricky did have a long history of psychological issues. He was known for making things up all the time, just telling people these crazy stories about himself, like how he was this talented singer and he was about to go on tour, or that he was actually a prince, or that he was studying to be a doctor. I mean, things that nobody thought was true, but Ricky would say as if this is just common knowledge, this is who I am. And so Ricky's family for the longest time had just assumed that Ricky was either bipolar or maybe schizophrenic. Those are both serious mental health disorders that totally disrupt normal thinking. But Ricky, despite being encouraged by his friends and family to go get help, never got help for any of his psychological issues. And so Ricky's life had kind of gone off the rails. He had dropped out of high school and not gone back to any sort of schooling, and he had spent some time in jail. Now, Ricky was living in a low-income, very dangerous part of St. Louis, which is a big Midwestern city on the Mississippi River that in 1999 had a very serious issue with gang violence. Ricky absolutely hated it there, but he had no way to actually leave St. Louis. In fact, Ricky didn't even have his own place. He bounced around from his mother's place, his aunt's place, and his girlfriend's place. Ricky did work, but the work was very sporadic, and it was, for the most part, just night shifts for random odd jobs. And when Ricky was actually working, he really just spent his time chain-smoking cigarettes and drinking literally gallons of coffee. Back at the ER, Ricky, who was still in the exam room, had only been there for less than an hour when the doctor came back in and told Ricky that he was okay and he was going to be discharged. Now, Ricky immediately said, no, I have to be here tonight. I need to stay here. You need to admit me. But the doctor just kind of ignored what he said and handed him the discharge paperwork. 15 minutes later, when a nurse came back into the exam room to get this paperwork from Ricky, she would walk in and see Ricky still sitting on the exam bed, kind of fidgeting around, looking down at this paperwork on his lap that immediately she saw he had not filled out. He had just signed his name at the bottom. And when she walked in, Ricky looked up at her and he kind of shrugged his shoulders and looked at her and was like, I don't know how to read or write. Can you help me? And so the nurse immediately felt bad for Ricky. I mean, he's got dirty clothes on, he looks thin and frail, he's clearly very down on his luck, there's some issues happening with this guy, and he can't even fill out his discharge paperwork. And so she said, no problem. She sat down with him, and together they filled out his paperwork. And then afterwards, when she walked him out of the exam room back to the front of the hospital, Ricky turned to her and said, instead of going home, can you just let me stay here in the lobby just for tonight? And this nurse, who knew she was not allowed to do this, she looked around and saw it was not a busy night there. And so she said, okay, as long as you don't bother anyone, you can stay here. And so Ricky thanked her repeatedly and then walked over to the corner, kind of far away from the front desk and far away from the front door. And he sat down and folded his arms, and then he just stared at the front door. And so this nurse assumed that Ricky actually must be homeless, especially based on, how he came in and how he was acting. And so she figured, he needs a place that's warm to stay tonight. And so the nurse went back to her station, and over the course of the next several hours, she would periodically look out into the lobby, expecting to see Ricky kind of curled up asleep in the corner. But every time she looked out there, Ricky was still sitting upright, arms folded, staring at the front door of the hospital as if he was expecting someone to come in at any moment and he needed to be ready. And so she thought this was unusual, but she decided not to intervene. She just let him sit there and do his thing. Later that morning at 11:30 a.m., when the nice nurse who had allowed Ricky to stay in the lobby was leaving her shift, another crew of nurses came in, and right away they noticed Ricky was just sitting in the corner for no apparent reason. And when they walked up to him to ask if he was okay, what are you doing here? What can we do for you? Ricky, instead of trying to talk to any of these nurses, just got up and walked out of the hospital. After leaving the hospital, Ricky walked to a nearby payphone and he called his girlfriend, Sandy. And when Sandy picked up the phone, she immediately recognized her boyfriend's very familiar voice, but she also picked up that he sounded really tired and kind of out of it. And so when she asked him, are you okay? What's going on? Ricky would tell her that he had just spent the night in the hospital. But he didn't clarify that he had spent the night in the lobby of the hospital, not admitted as a patient at the hospital. But to Sandy, it really didn't matter because already this was raising red flags for her, because this was actually the second time that Ricky had gone to the ER just that week. Just a few days earlier, Ricky had been released from a different hospital in St. Louis after telling doctors there that he had had these chest pains and he couldn't breathe. And so he had been admitted for a couple of days, but ultimately they determined that there really was nothing wrong with him. And they too believed whatever was happening with him had to be psychological. And so he had been released. Additionally, Sandy had been growing increasingly worried about Ricky because over the last several weeks, Ricky had begun acting really paranoid, to the point where anytime he was in her apartment and somebody outside the apartment just walked down the hallway, Ricky would jump as if he was worried whoever was out there was going to barge in at any moment. But whenever Sandy asked Ricky, what's going on? Why are you so paranoid? He refused to elaborate. So, feeling very concerned about Ricky, on this phone call, Sandy would say to Ricky, please come to my apartment and let me take care of you. If you're not feeling well, I'll make you feel better. Just please come to my apartment right now. But Ricky said no, he did not want to go to Sandy's apartment. He told her instead he was going to walk to a nearby gas station to get a bite to eat. And then afterwards he would give Sandy a call. So the two of them hung up. But then Ricky did not call Sandy later. A worker at the gas station where Ricky said he was going would later tell authorities that Ricky did come into the gas station and he got a hot dog on that day, the 26th. And then the next day, this same worker said, yep, we saw Ricky again. On the 27th, he came in here, he got a bite to eat, and then he left. But after that, nobody saw Ricky. Not his aunt, not his mom, not his girlfriend. He didn't show up in any other emergency rooms in Missouri. He just disappeared. On June 30th, so 3 days after Ricky was last seen at this gas station, A woman was driving her car 20 miles north of St. Louis on this highway when she looked out into this cornfield that butted up against the highway, and she saw kind of in the middle of it was this dark shape that looked totally out of place. And so she was intrigued enough that she actually pulled over on the road, she got out, and began walking into this cornfield to see what this thing was. And when she got up to this thing and saw what it was, she froze in horror, and then she screamed, turned around, and ran back to her car, and she flew to the nearest gas station, she grabbed a payphone, and she called 911. When the police arrived at this cornfield, they too walked out towards this dark thing, and then finally they saw what this thing was that had scared this woman. It was a dead person who was lying face down. Their body was very badly decomposed. And in fact, their body was just kind of falling apart. Like the fingers of this person's body had just kind of crumpled off of their hands.
What the
now,
hell?
Based on what this
That's
person
so
was
weird.
wearing, they appeared to be male, but there was no way to tell how this person died or really how long they had been dead for. But despite the advanced decomposition, authorities were able to get a good fingerprint, and it would turn out that this body belonged to Ricky McCormick. The day after Ricky's body was found, the police would come out and say they were treating his death as a homicide. This area along this highway in this cornfield was actually a fairly common place for murderers to dump their victims. And it was very unlikely that Ricky had gotten there by himself. He didn't have a car. In fact, he didn't even have a driver's license. There was no public transportation that could have brought him to this spot. And if Ricky had decided to walk to this area for some reason, it was a solid 15 miles from where he lived and worked. Also, Ricky's body was way too decomposed relative to when he had last been seen alive, just 3 days earlier. And so there was a theory that perhaps he was killed somewhere else and then kept indoors in heat, and that had accelerated his decomposition, and then at some point whoever had killed him had moved his body and dumped it in this cornfield. And so on that first day of the homicide investigation, July 1st, the police put 18 detectives, so a ton of detectives, on this case, and they also
7 seconds ago, your boy.
to come forward if you had any information about what could have happened.
That's
to
fair
Ricky
enough.
McCormick. But just a day later, on July 2nd, the police came out and made an announcement that,
brains
after
work in
looking
mysterious
at all the
ways.
evidence and looking at Ricky's body again, it did not appear, in fact, that he had been murdered, but instead he must have died of natural causes. This is a guy that had lung and heart problems, and so that is likely what killed him. Case closed. And so after this announcement, all of the evidence in Ricky's case was bundled up, put into storage, and people just kind of forgot about it. 6 months later,
I don't
the
blame
Federal
you.
Bureau of
Everyone's heard
Investigation,
me moan
the
before.
FBI, got a tip that involved Ricky McCormick. They were working on a case in St. Louis, Missouri about this major drug dealer who apparently was ordering hits on his rivals, and a confidential informant came forward and told the FBI that this guy, Ricky McCormick, had gotten wrapped up with this major drug dealer. But they didn't really know what role Ricky was playing with this drug dealer. It was just kind of a rumor on the street that, Ricky was involved somehow. This did not make any sense to the FBI because they're thinking, why would this big-time drug dealer who really was a mover and shaker in St. Louis get involved with this guy, Ricky McCormick, who was obviously deeply mentally ill and borderline homeless? I mean, what role could Ricky play for this drug dealer? But the FBI still did follow up on this tip because it was very credible, and when they spoke to the local police who had investigated Ricky's death, they got Ricky's file, which meant they got all of the evidence.
Can you hear it in person?
The FBI realized the local police had
That wouldn't
overlooked
surprise
a
me.
very strange piece of evidence found in Ricky's pocket. This strange evidence was quickly sent to FBI headquarters in Quantico, Virginia, and it landed on the desk of a forensic analyst named Dan Olson. Dan was relatively new to the FBI, but he was highly disciplined and very methodical. And so when he received this piece of evidence, he got to work right away trying to figure out what it was, what it meant in relationship to Ricky and this drug dealer, and maybe does it answer the question of how these people are connected. But despite his best efforts in calling in the experts and using every computer program to analyze this evidence, he just could not figure out what it meant. At the same time that Dan was doing this, the big drug dealer who was the target of that big FBI investigation in St. Louis was arrested on gun and drug charges, and so the big case was now over. And suddenly, trying to figure out what connection Ricky McCormick had to this drug dealer was kind of irrelevant, because the drug dealer was behind bars and Ricky
not
was
surprising.
already dead. And so the FBI kind of put a pause on
So do
trying
I,
to
in a
figure
lot
out
of
what
ways.
this evidence was. And so Dan, even though he was really
Mine's
curious, now,
anxiety
he was
based,
fully
though.
invested in trying to figure out what this thing was, he realized he had to give it up too and move on to something else. And so the strange evidence went back into storage, and once again, everyone just kind of moved on from Ricky McCormick. But Dan never really forgot about this mystifying piece of evidence. It was always in the back of his mind. 22 years later, Dan Olson had now become very senior at the FBI. He was actually in charge of their cryptanalysis and racketeering unit. Basically, he was in charge of the people at the FBI who specialized in code breaking, meaning they were the people that would pull any sort of secret messages embedded inside of evidence. And so at some point, after taking over this unit, Dan pulled out of storage this strange piece of evidence connected to Ricky McCormick, and he said, you know what? I just need to know what this means. I have to figure it out. I've never been able to. It's haunted me ever since. And so Dan went public. He went to the media and he asked the world
Yet
to
another
take
thing
a
we
look
have in
at
common.
this mystifying piece of evidence and come forward if you have any idea what it means. When Ricky was discovered in that cornfield, the local police quickly emptied his pockets. And in his pants pocket were 2 documents that contained an incredibly complex cipher or code. It was basically 30 lines on each piece of paper with different symbols and letters and capital letters. I mean, it looked like total gibberish to the untrained eye. But to people like Dan and his code-breaking team, these symbols and letters could mean there was a secret message hidden inside of these documents if you could break the code system. But of course, no one could ever break that code. So how in the world does a guy like Ricky, who is basically functionally illiterate and can only write his name, he's clearly mentally ill and he's not really in touch with reality all the time, how does a guy like that come to be in possession of these complex ciphers? And if he didn't write these ciphers, because that's possible, maybe somebody else gave them to Ricky, well, why would anyone who came up with this very complex cipher entrust a guy like Ricky to be the one to carry these things around? I mean, presumably, they contain confidential information that's been very carefully hidden inside of the cipher. And so why give it to Ricky?
Why don't you
It's
want
such a
more things in
liability.
common with
and
me?
And also, what happened to Ricky in that cornfield? I mean, we don't even know how he got there. We don't know how he was killed. All we know is that he had these ciphers in his pocket when he was found. And so many people believe, including law enforcement,
Fair enough.
the answer to, what happened to Ricky and what was his connection to this drug lord in St. Louis, if any, or, what was he up to, will all be solved if we can just figure out what these 2 ciphers mean. But as of right now, no one has solved the riddle of what these 2 ciphers mean.
It was probably just him trying to write a freaking note.
Before he died, became increasingly paranoid and was so scared of someone or something that he was likely running into these hospitals just to hide out. But eventually, whoever or whatever Ricky was scared of very likely caught up to him and killed him. But until we crack these ciphers, we very likely will have no idea what actually happened to Ricky McCormick. Today, the FBI has set up a special website where you can look at these 2 ciphers that Ricky had in his pocket, and if you're able to crack them, because someone's going to eventually, you can tell the FBI through this website and potentially help solve Ricky's murder. To go to this FBI website, click the link in the description below.
Could literally be him trying to write down his
that's going
thing.
to do it. If you enjoyed today's story and you want to hear more
Let's
stories
get that
like
pat
it,
on this.
be sure to check out our podcast called the Mr. Ballin Podcast, which has hundreds more stories, many of which are exclusive to the podcast. So if you want to listen to those stories, again, it's called the Mr. Ballin Podcast, and it's available exclusively on Amazon Music.
At number 5, the trial of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, also known as the Devil Made Me Do
He'll
It
do it
case.
in
This is the
2
first
seconds.
recorded
Yeah, he
court
gets
case
it.
in
He seems to
United
crack
States
everything, doesn't he?
history that used demonic possession as basis for a defendant's claim that had ultimately resulted in the first-degree manslaughter of Connecticut man Alan Bonner.
Shit,
It
this
began
one.
with the Glatzel family after their 11-year-old
It's
son David had
terrifying,
allegedly been possessed by a
Ed and
demonic
Lorraine
beast
Warren
who assaulted
encounters
him in an
with pure
attic.
evil.
This manifested itself as David began to experience night terrors, exhibit
Thought
strange
it might be
behavior, and
appropriate
fall
for Morbid
victim
Monday.
to unexplained wounds, scratches, and bruises. Of course, after calling upon the services of a Catholic priest and finding no resolution, the family contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren. Soon after, Lorraine witnessed a black mist around David, an apparent indication of demonic involvement, as well as red hand marks around his neck, a demon choking him. The Warrens attempted to perform 3 exorcisms on the boy, where during one attempt the demon spoke out and said that David's stepfather, Arne Johnson, would commit a murder when the demonic host would go on to possess him itself. Well, that's exactly what happened, strangely enough, and Arne Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. He still maintains that he was possessed by a demon to this day, despite the court not believing so. Coming in at number 4, The Werewolf of London. Well, that's a title if I've ever heard one. Do you know anything about lycanthropy? The supernatural transformation of a person into a wolf? On the other hand, scientifically speaking, defined as clinical lycanthropy, a rare psychiatric disorder that involves the delusion of bestial transformation, often exhibited as a wolf. Meet Bill Ramsey, a London man or wolf who had allegedly demonstrated demonically possessed lycan behavior since the age of 9. In 1983, as a grown man, he admitted himself to an institution, desperate to get help for his affliction. According to Bill, he would display superhuman strength and feel a rabid, frenzied urge to bite his family and relatives before succumbing to a strange seizure and convulsion. While in hospital, Bill had an overwhelming craving for blood and went on to attack a nurse while barking like a dog. A few years later, after being released from hospital, he went into a wolf-like rage and attacked a police officer with superhuman force. It took 6 more police officers to finally restrain the beast, leading to widespread news coverage and mass hysteria of a werewolf in London. Of course, this caught the attention of Ed and Lorraine, and they flew him out to Connecticut, performed an exorcism on the wolf demon, and he was right as rain. Job done. Everyone's a winner. Allegedly. Next up at number 3, the Warrens' psychic photography. Although admittedly not a single case but an exhibition of quite a large number, a technique that was woven by the Warrens throughout their career as paranormal investigators. Now take this with a pinch of salt, because for those that oppose the Warrens' claims, the majority of criticism comes from their specific technique of paranormal photography. The vast majority of the Warrens' physical evidence comes from photography, racking up hundreds of ghost snaps that form the basis of their alleged paranormal evidence, which must fit 2 specific instructions for it to make the grade. Use an autofocused or fixed focus camera with an automatic flash, and the more power the flash, the better. Supposedly, the more exposition of light, the more successful it will be to catch ghosts, specifically under Lorraine's technique, which pinpoints energy vortices and allows a spirit to manifest itself. They use this technique for the entirety of their career, and it never seemed to change. But for me, it is probably the weakest part of their casework and has the most holes when it comes to credibility. What do you guys think? Swinging in at our number 2 spot, Union Cemetery. According to local legend, the Union Cemetery in eastern Connecticut dates as far back as the 1700s and is infamous as one of the most haunted cemeteries in the United States. Luckily for them then, that Ed and Lorraine Warren lived pretty much next door to this hotspot hive of haunted activity. Very lucky. One of the most notorious ghosts in the graveyard is the White Lady, also known as the Lady in White, a spirit tortured by the tragedy of her mortal life. In some legends, the victim of betrayal by her husband, in other cases, murdered by her illicit boyfriend. Well, luckily for us, Ed Warren claimed to have captured footage of the White Lady on camera. He first recorded the White Lady on September 1st, 1990 at around 2:40 AM when he heard a woman weeping beyond the gravestones, looked out and saw hundreds of strange lights floating around, which manifested into the figure of a young woman dressed in white with long, dark hair. He screwed up when he walked towards the figure though, and the ghost disappeared. According to Ed's advice, you never walk towards the ghost, you let the ghost come towards you, because a human can change the molecular and magnetic field when a ghost is materializing. useful. Well, sounds like crazy footage, right? Something to catch on camera. Well, unfortunately for us, Ed Warren refused to show evidence of this particular video, instead hoarding it for himself, despite urges for it to be analysed by the scientific community. And finally, coming in at our #1 spot, the Snedeker house. This one is pretty messed up, even when you remove the paranormal element. Otherwise known as a haunting in Connecticut, which went on to inspire the Hollywood film of the same name, although Ed and Lorraine reportedly detested the film for its historical inaccuracy, claiming that so much more happened than what the film depicted. According to them, the real story involved the Snedeker family, who purchased their family home at a knockout price due to it serving previously as, wait for it, a funeral home and mortuary. Yeah, you're kind of just asking for it there, really. Not only that, but there was also a graveyard outside. Take the hint. If you take local legend into account, the house was home to some pretty vile deeds where staff at the funeral home were rumoured to have been caught in acts of necrophilia, leading to an infestation of malevolent spirits. As events unfolded, the Snedeker family were terrorised by demonic occurrences, tap water running with blood, children being mysteriously spun around by invisible forces, and the family waking up to toe tags attached to them like that of a corpse. Now, this case has been hotly disputed, and the Warrens were famously criticised for their involvement with the Snedeker family, who were reportedly involved in some serious drug and alcohol abuse, which formed the basis of their paranormal claims, rather than actually being terrorized by a demonic spirit. Nevertheless, Ed and Lorraine stood by their involvement as one of the most terrifyingly paranormal occurrences throughout their entire career, and Lorraine maintains this stance long after Ed Warren's passing.
And number 5, Guided by a Priest. In this video feature published by YouTube channel Gravity Media Productions, we see a film crew brought down into the occult museum by a priest who guides them on their tour. We get a glimpse of the Annabelle doll and the Warren's satanic idol that was found in the early 90s in the woods of Newtown. The priest shows the crew the shadow doll and tells them the horrific story of how the doll entered a couple's nightmares collectively. He also shows the crew children's tombstones that were used as altars for satanic rituals. It's then followed up by a clip of Lorraine Warren saying how she refuses to go back down into the occult museum, especially now that she's lost Ed. It's just too risky for her. And at number 4, Mocking Annabelle. During an interview, Ed Warren tells a camera crew a chilling story about an instance that happened at the museum. One day, a young man and his girlfriend drove his motorcycle over to the occult museum and took a look inside. While in front of the Annabelle doll, he began to mock it, not believing that a demon truly possessed it. He challenged it to do something evil, all while tapping on the glass case that the doll is held within. Later on, as he drove away with his girlfriend, having a laugh over Annabelle and the other objects they had seen, the couple got into a tragic accident that ended his life and severely paralyzed his girlfriend. While it seems that perhaps it may have been Annabelle who was responsible for this, or at least that's what Ed Warren seems to believe.
The young man came here, felt it was nothing but a joke, started knocking on the glass, saying if this thing could perform any kind of evil act, to do it. 3 hours later, the young man was dead. He came here on a motorcycle with his girlfriend. She said they were laughing about the doll when they left. She was paralyzed in a hospital for over a year.
It could be that something else in the museum cursed them after hearing the mocking, since Annabelle is said to be extremely secure in the case that she's currently held within. Moving on to number 3, the Halloween Room. This video starts off as a cute little tour of Ed Warren's Halloween Room, which was attached to the Occult Museum. It's a nice little look at the collection of fun items that fans and friends have given him over the years, knowing how much he loves Halloween.
He likes watching videos about Robert the Doll.
From there, the tour goes into darker territory. Unlike many of the other tour videos we've seen of the Occult Museum, this tour has no background music, and it's pretty eerie. You hear Ed go on about how the Occult Museum is likely one of the most haunted places in the world. Ed says that it's not a building that anyone should be allowed in between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m., and how many of the objects in the room have resulted in people being maimed or killed, or resulted in individuals' sanity being harmed severely, with some having to go to mental institutions as an after effect of their encounter with these objects, all of which he claims are evil in some way. Moving on to number 2, the tour. Here we have footage from the Barefoot Paranormal's tour at the Occult Museum. It's a 15-minute walkthrough of the museum that feels like you're right there with the visitors, and gives viewers a very up-close and personal look at the objects featured. You can hear a lot of narration concerning the origins of many of the items that are visible too. Plus, a lot of it is shot through a camera using some sort of night vision feature, hence why the lighting at parts is so green and freaky. It just kind of makes it spookier. And finally, in at number 1, Moving Annabelle. We featured this video clip on one of our other recent lists about the famous Annabelle doll at the museum. It's the real-life footage of Tony Spira, the son-in-law of Lorraine Warren, moving the Annabelle doll from her original case into a new, more secure and portable case. So yeah, doll came out of the case, was exposed to the elements. Very creepy if you believe in Annabelle. So he starts off the video by doing a series of prayers, and after other precautionary measures are taken,
Yeah,
animals gently
I've heard
move
that
from
that
one
can
holding
be
area
really
to the
bad.
next. Tony then conducts a binding spell. The whole video is a little nerve-wracking, and many an individual who has watched it has claimed to see the doll moving ever so slightly at various points of the 10-minute and 8-second clip.
Coming in at 5, the Southend werewolf. This is perhaps the most unusual case on our list. This investigation took the Warrens out of the US into a seaside town in Essex, England, where a man named Bill Ramsey lived, who was believed to be possessed by a demon that manifested as a wolf. Backstory: growing up, Ramsey was a normal kid. However, one day at the age of 9, he suddenly began to exhibit inhuman qualities. One report stated that while playing outside in his backyard, Ramsey felt a frigid cold overtake him. He was overcome with an awful stench before flying into a rage and uprooting a fence post, gnawing on its wire meshing. He remained incident-free up until the 1960s, during which time he was plagued with nightmares, cold sweats, and began to wake up panting like a wild animal. In the 1980s, Bill would become overwhelmed by the sensations he experienced when he was young, and at one point he attacked a friend in a car on their way home from a pub and manhandled the police in an intense altercation. The Warrens were of course called in, during which time they stated that Ramsey would ask to be locked up in a jail cell for his protection and the protection of the public. They ended up asking Ramsey to come to their Connecticut home, where Bishop
usually
Robert
it's from
McKenna
another
would
part of
perform
the
a
same
recorded
body.
exorcism on Ramsey. In at 4, Arnchan.
Look, my love, my new song is a hit on iTunes.
Yay! I'm so excited for you. How about I order us some pizza to celebrate?
That sounds lovely, my love.
Sim.
Where did you order the pizza from?
Peppino's Pizza.
Oh,
Thank you for rescuing me. Now, get me out of this cage.
mamma mia, tutto questo valeva davvero il grado P.
Oh, I don't have any money on me, but I can make it worth your while.
What the damn hell?
Student loans to pay. I ain't got any time for pussy.
Yo, thanks for watching. If you want more, check out the playlist to the right. Also, check out my other series on the channel, such as Calculating With the Connoisseur, which is also to the right. And if you like what
That's
you see,
it, I'm
hit the
out.
subscribe button. With that said, thanks for
Out
watching,
of what,
and I'll get once a
TMNT?
day night. Laters.
Hello there. How you doing? Already giving me SMG4.
Arnchan Johnson. The trial of Arnchan
It is
Johnson is
Morbid
baffling, and the first known
Monday.
case in the US that used the devil made me do it as its defense. On the night of February 16th, 1981, Johnson, who was just 19 years old at the time, was out for dinner with his fiancée and their landlord, Alan Bono. Johnson stabbed Bono multiple times using his pocket knife and later went on to plead not guilty by possession, a defense that was founded on Johnson's relationship with his fiancée's brother, David. In 1980, David woke up to what he described as a man with big black eyes, a thin face with animal features and jagged teeth, pointed ears, horns, and hoofs. The demon-like creature scared David so much that he turned to his sister Ann Johnson for help. They turned to a priest, which only angered the entity more, causing it to make David hiss and quote Paradise Lost. The Warrens were brought in, and during one particular interview, they stated, I quote, "While Ed interviewed the boy, I saw a black misty form next to him, which told me we were dealing with something of a negative nature. Soon the child was complaining that invisible hands were choking him, and there were red marks on him. He said that he had a feeling of being hit." The Warrens worked alongside 4 priests to exorcise more than 40 demons from David. However, Johnson seemed to be the new target, and after he stabbed his landlord, he was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter after his claims of possession didn't hold up in court. Coming in at 3, Annabelle the doll. This case follows the now infamous Annabelle doll, a Raggedy Ann doll that was purchased in an antique store. It was gifted to the buyer's daughter, a nursing student. However, the student and her roommate very quickly began to notice odd occurrences involving the doll, including her changing positions and even leaving notes. Horrible. The messages eventually escalated and blood even appeared on the doll's dress. Annabelle seemed to take aim at the fiancé of one of the roommates, who claims he woke up one night frozen in bed as the doll crawled up his body and tried to strangle him. He also claimed that upon entering a dark room where the doll was sat, he felt something attack him. When he turned on the lights, he saw his stomach covered in bloody scratches, with the doll now on the floor. The Warrens were eventually called in, and they explained that the doll was possessed by the spirit of a deceased 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins, which supposedly died on the land where the apartment stood. However, it was later determined by the Warrens that a demonic presence was in fact behind the doll. They ended up performing a blessing in the home before taking Annabelle and housing her in the Warrens Occult Museum. Coming in at 2, the Amityville case. This is perhaps the Warrens' most famous paranormal case, with the investigation being adapted into many frightening and unending films. The case involved the Lutz family, who took up residence in a suburban home in Amityville, Long Island in 1975, just 1 year after a deadly mass murder occurred on the property, which saw Ronald DeFeo Jr. brutally kill 6 members of his family. For 28 days, the Lutzes were antagonized by spirits. They heard voices, saw swarms of flies, and were inflicted with welts. The Warrens were eventually called in to cleanse the home, bringing with them a local TV crew. While there, they snapped a handful of pictures, including one that seemed to show a boy with glowing eyes. The Warrens ultimately determined that the land was cursed, and Lorraine considered it to be the one case that continuously haunted her, stating, "Amityville was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. It followed us right straight across the country. I will never go in the Amityville house ever again." End quote. And lastly, coming in at number 1, the Perrin family haunting. This now infamous case follows the Perrins, a family that moved to an idyllic 200-acre home in Harrisville, Rhode Island, a home that hid some very dark and disturbing secrets. The home was originally built in 1736 and was inhabited by Bathsheba Thayer and her 4 children, 3 of whom died young. The deaths and circumstances around the deaths drew in a lot of suspicion within the town, resulting in them ostracizing Bathsheba, who was ultimately labeled a Satanist by her community. She then went on to hang herself in her own backyard. Now, during the parents' stay at the home, they experienced a lot of ghostly interactions, including spirits playing with her children. Bathsheba also appeared to them, only she was far more menacing than the children that haunted the residence. They heard disembodied voices and watched on as furniture moved on its own. The Perrin family also stated that Bathsheba targeted the mother, Carolyn, and was jealous of her motherhood. The Warrens were ultimately brought in to help the family in 1974. However, the presence only worsened the situation, so much so that the family asked the Warrens to leave. Coming in at 5, the Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste was an American merchant brigantine which was discovered adrift and deserted in the Atlantic Ocean off the Azores Islands on December 5th, 1872. Yep, this is already setting up to be the perfect case for our friends Ed and Lorraine Warren, if they had been alive in the 1800s, that is. But alas, can't win them all. In November of 1872, the Mary Celeste took off from New York for Italy with 10 people aboard. However, nearly a month later, it was discovered by a British ship off the coast of Portugal. Save for a few feet of water, the ship was undamaged and still contained 6 months worth of food and water. The last entry in her log was dated 10 days prior. Her cargo was intact, and the captain and crew's personal belongings were undisturbed. None of those who had been on board were seen or heard from again. Creepy stuff, right? So what exactly went down? Well, nobody knows. All we have are theories. Some believe foul play, although the evidence in Gibraltar failed to support theories of murder and conspiracy. The suspicion of foul play lingered on. Insurance fraud was briefly suspected on the grounds of newspaper reports that Mary Celeste had been heavily overinsured. However, let's talk about the lifeboat. There was one lifeboat aboard the ship, which was never discovered. Now, one theory suggests that the transfer of personnel to the yawl may have been intended as a temporary safety measure. More speculation suggests that the state of the rigging and ropes that the ship's main halyard may have been used to attach the yawl to the ship, enabling the company to return on board when the danger had passed. If the line had parted, however, Mary Celeste would have sailed away empty, leaving the yawl to founder with its occupants. As of today, the fate of the Mary Celeste remains largely a mystery. Pirates would have left the ship in a worse state than how it was found, and mutiny seems unlikely. My money is definitely on sea monsters or angry ghosts haunting the seas. If only Ed and Lorraine were around to give us the answers. Coming in at number 4, the Toxic Woman. Around 8:15 p.m. on February 19th, 1994, paramedics wheeled a young woman into the emergency room of General Hospital in the Southern California city of Riverside. The woman was awake, but responded to questions with only brief and incoherent questions. The woman was Gloria Ramirez, who was just 31 years old old and had cervical cancer. Her blood pressure was extremely low and her heart rate was incredibly fast. Now this is where things get weird. Like, really weird. Doctors noticed an oily sheen on her skin and her mouth had a strange garlicky smell. When nurses went to draw her blood, they found that the sample smelled like ammonia, while others noticed her blood contained whitish particles. Not long after, the medical staff began to feel sick and faint, and by the end of the night, 23 workers were affected, with 5 even being hospitalized. After 45 minutes, Ramirez passed away from kidney failure. The incident would throw Riverside General Hospital into newspaper headlines for weeks, with the frightening possibility of toxic fumes capturing the public's attention. After years of forensic testing, explanation after explanation has been ruled out. No one will ever know what happened to Ramirez, though it was likely toxic. Other theorists are calling for something else, something paranormal, something that only Ed and Lorraine Warren could figure out. Coming in at number 3, Overton Bridge. Overton Bridge is a Category B listed structure over the Overton Burn on the approach road to Overton House in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland. It was completed in 1895 and designed by the landscape architect H.E. Milner. Though scenic and incredibly beautiful, this bridge has a haunting and unexplained mystery surrounding it. According to Glasgow skeptics, a tale of dogs leaping from the bridge to their deaths has been on the internet since 2005, when it was mentioned in passing on a forum about hidden sites in Glasgow. However, it was when the Daily Mail published an article about it that things began to take off. Now known as the Bridge of Death, at least 50 dogs since the 1960s have thrown themselves to their death in the gorge below. The canine deaths have prompted claims of paranormal activity at the bridge, with paranormal investigator Brian Dunning asking, is it possible for a dog to commit premeditated suicide? Yes. In 2019, the owners of the Overton House were interviewed for the New York Times, in which they said that in the 17 years that they lived there, they had seen a number of dogs which had become agitated, jump and fall from the bridge. Spooky stuff. However, it's not just the curse of the dogs that plagued the bridge. In October 1994, a man threw his 2-week-old son to his death from the bridge because he believed that his son was an incarnation of the devil. So
what
sweet, Father of the Year. He then attempted to commit suicide several times, first by attempting to jump off the bridge, and then later by cutting his wrists. Honestly, the paranormal events surrounding this bridge will never be solved, but I would have loved for Ed and Lorraine to visit the site and try to reach out to the... It's like a joke. It's a joke. But I would have loved for Ed and Lorraine to visit the site and try to reach out to the demonic forces surrounding it. One day. Their ghosts will come back. In at 2, the Atlas Vampire. The Atlas Vampire was an unknown assailant who committed the unsolved vampire murder in Stockholm, Sweden in 1932. Yep, you heard me correctly. A vampire in 1932. On May 4th, 1932, a 32-year-old sex worker, Lily Lindstrom, was found murdered in her apartment in the Atlas area of Stockholm. She had supposedly been dead for 2 to 3 days before the police broke into her apartment. She had suffered blunt force trauma to the head and was discovered completely naked and face down on her bed. What makes this case noteworthy is what was missing from the scene. Blood. All of her blood. Considering the cause of death and trauma, aka blunt trauma to the head, nearly all of Lindstrom's blood had been drained from her body, and police found traces of saliva on her face and neck. However, what makes this even stranger is that police found a blood-stained ladle in her apartment, something that they believe was used to drain, even drink, her blood. It's beginning to sound like a vampire now, right? Well, it did to the press, who nicknamed the unknown assailant the Atlas Vampire. And to this day, the murderer has never been apprehended. Now, what I want to know is if this vampire is still lurking around, ladle in hand. If so, I wish Ed and Lorraine were around to deal with this vamp. It's like a joke. It's a joke, this video. And finally, coming in at number 1, the Pollock twins. The strange story of the Pollock twins begins in the quaint town of Hexham in Northumberland, England, with the family of John and Florence Pollock and their 2 young daughters, Joanne and Jacqueline. Things couldn't be better for the family until their idyllic life was met with tragedy on May 7th, 1957. When the 2 Pollock children were on their way to church with a friend, they were hit by a car driven by a local woman who had taken an overdose in a bid to kill herself. herself. The two children were killed instantly. 2 years later, though, their mother gave birth to twins, Julian and Jennifer, identical twins in every way, aside from Jennifer's birthmarks that resembled similar marks on her deceased sister Jacqueline. After the twins were born, the family moved away to a different part of the country. This is where things begin to get weird. Julian and Jennifer started asking for toys favored by their dead sisters. And when the family moved back to Hexham, the twins supposedly recognized landmarks they had never seen before. These odd occurrences were enough evidence for Dr. Ian Stevenson to write about the twins in a book about reincarnation, claiming they were reincarnations of their older sisters. Now it is worth noting that Stevenson himself considered the possibility that the twins were perhaps influenced by what their parents had said in the past, but he eventually came to the conclusion that it would have been impossible for them to mold their behaviors and recollections to match the dead twins. It is unknown what is going on with the case of the Pollock twins or what it means for the reincarnation as a whole. At the end of the day, though, it's an unexplained phenomenon that only Ed and Lorraine could have solved. But alas, the world is cruel.
And at number 5, Annabelle. The Annabelle doll is the most
Pause. Not gonna lie, that would have been your same reaction. Well, it definitely should not be a secret. They drive them really fast. Wait, how is no one on the road? How are there no other cars? For this. I mean, you'd think that there'd at least be some on the side of the road. Oh, no, there's some cars in that shot. Oh. Wow, they must have done that so many times to practice that. I mean, damn. Kitties different types. Some sway left, some sway right. They cost me hours of sleep because I toss and turn like titties big, titties small, medium, tall, black, white, tan, some titties female, some titties are men, titties. I am addicted, absolutely. No, it's not a bot. This is me calm. And that's just nice. How you doing, Nicole? All that rubber. How many tie-ins do you think they went through doing this? Just good thinking about titties. Well, I'm thinking about titties now. Other than the 2 videos I sent, I don't have anything. Okay. Don't have anything morbid to bring. That's okay. I appreciate you keeping that in mind, though. Tires they go through in that day, dang you. Oh, now it's time for a bite, huh? Yep. Gotta have a lot of trust in the other driver doing that. I mean, there would have to be so much trust. Wow, that's quite a turn to finish that on. Damn.
I'm sailing away. Set an open course for the virgin sea. On board, I'm the captain, so climb aboard. I'll try, oh Lord, I'll try to carry on. Come sail away, come sail away, come sail away with me. Come sail away, come sail away, come sail away with me. Come sail away, come sail away, come
Remember when Cartman couldn't help but sing that song? teeny tiny. Come sail away with me. Really? Nice. Come sail away with me.
I had a good job until my boss accused me of stealing. I better call Saul.
I was out partying, minding my own
You've heard that
business.
song? Fair enough.
You are under arrest.
I'd better call Saul.
Hi, I'm Saul Goodman. Did you know that you have rights? The Constitution says you do, and so do I. I believe that until proven guilty, every man, woman, and child in this country is innocent. And that's why I fight for you, Albuquerque.
Better call Saul. Saul Goodman, attorney at law. 505-164 CALL. 505-164 CALL. Serious when you.
Who would win, Cartman or Stewie? Cartman is more of a psychopath. Stewie may win in the short run, but Cartman would get him later. In the way he least expects.
Yep, I went to 50 GameStops in 50 states in America.
How does
Why?
GameStop still exist?
For absolutely no reason. Oh, and also this video is brought to you by Squarespace, but more on that later. My friends Carl and John will be joining as well, but Nathaniel Nandy will not. The man can barely take care of himself and his boulders. Can you imagine him on an airplane? But anyway, it's time to go to 50 GameStops.
I wouldn't know, I've never been on one.
To start, we're traveling to the most difficult places, which are Alaska and Hawaii. We started heading to the airport, and something horrible happened. I forgot my Nintendo Switch case. I know, truly a travesty, but lucky for me, we're on our way to a GameStop so I can get a new one. In Alaska. Also, one of the TSA security guards actually recognized me. Now, I've been recognized plenty of times at gaming conventions and stuff, but someone that works at TSA totally threw me off guard. So the original plan was to get to Alaska late at night on this first day. Unfortunately, we had a layover in Seattle, and then we were stuck there for the night because the Alaska flight got delayed for 12 hours. And also, Carl was starting to get sick, which, you know, flying when you're sick is a really bad combination. So, not the greatest start, but
I wouldn't know. I've not flown anywhere.
We all woke up and got very little sleep because of the flight change. And also, we have to do 3 flights in one waking day, so that'll be fun. 4 hours to Alaska, 4 hours back to Seattle, and 6 hours to Hawaii. We got to the airport and started our flight to Alaska. I've never been to this state, so I was looking out the window and wow, Alaska sure is beautiful. Just look at those massive snowy mountains. I totally get why people want to live here now, although it's a bit far from civilization for me personally. So after landing, Carl and I made our way to the first GameStop, while John stayed behind with our bags so we wouldn't have to go through security again with all our luggage. This first one was in a mall, and after looking around for a few minutes, there it was. filled with billions of games, toys, Funko Pops. Oh, I was so excited to go in, and yeah, I didn't actually film inside because the guy working there was kind of staring me down and I didn't want to bother him. But Carl filmed the first purchase secretly. Dude, this mall has an ice rink in it. It's so
Wait,
cool.
what?
But after that, we took our first selfie because we're doing that at every GameStop just because. And finally, my Nintendo Switch was protected inside a case. I also bought this digital code that I'll be giving away on Twitter, but more on that at the end. However, there was an actual big problem. Carl's ear was aching really bad. In fact, it hurt so much that he didn't feel like he could fly again. So he went to urgent care, and it turns out that he has a minor tear in his eardrum. This is really bad because if he flies again, his eardrum could rupture and cause permanent damage. Specifically, the tympanic membrane is what tore, and you need that to hear because that's what allows you to receive vibrations from sound, which is transferred into your middle ear and inner ear. So,
oh no.
Now what? Do we cancel the whole trip? Maybe delay our flights? What on earth are we supposed to do? Ultimately, we decided we would move Carl's ticket around so we could fly back home when he's feeling better, and John and I continued on to Hawaii. For us to get there, we had to leave Alaska at 1 a.m., land in Seattle again for another layover, and then fly to Hawaii. At this point, John and I had been awake for around 25 hours, and this is me on one of the flights in the bathroom completely dead inside. As you can imagine, I was very exhausted, and I felt like I was abandoning one of my best friends in a state far, far away from home. So after all this flying and being awake for so long, we made it to Hawaii and got to our hotel. And my gosh, this place is beautiful too. But I was exhausted and the time zone change was 6 hours at this point, so I was completely conked out. Meanwhile, Carl got himself a hotel and just made the best of the scenario. At the very least, he got a pretty sweet room with a big tub.
This big tub. And I mean, it is big tub.
And you can open these doors in the big tub and watch TV from it, which would have been cool if the TV worked. But yeah, at this point, we all decided that we're gonna go back to Hawaii next year because it's really unfair that Carl couldn't make it. After about 11 hours of sleep, I was feeling extremely refreshed. I got my cheesy-ass Hawaiian Mario shirt on and was ready to rock. It was just that time to walk on some rocks on the beach, say hello to these cool-looking crabs, and of course, hit up the next GameStop. This one was also in a mall, and John and I got a little distracted because Macy's has Toys R Us. Yeah, I totally forgot Macy's bought them, so we took a little excursion to check it out. And, well...
Mario? We have Mario here?
Jeffrey the Giraffe was hanging out on the bench, looking like he's living on, I don't know, life support. Why would anyone purchase Toys R Us? This doesn't feel like a Toys R Us at all. It's just like a normal toy section in a Target. So I guess that was moderately interesting, but anyway, our quest continues. Wow, there it is. Another GameStop. Getting more comfortable filming in public, I got some good shots of the store, and it looks about the same as the one in Alaska. This time I got a digital code for Kirby's Dream Buffet because this is actually a really fun game, and John got some Pokemon cards, so that was pretty cool. And after that, well, not much really happened involving GameStop. Yeah, so since we're actually in Hawaii, we decided to stay here for a few days. While it was really fun and we did a lot of cool stuff, it just didn't feel right that Carl was trapped in frickin' Alaska. He did get better and eventually flew back home, so at least he's okay. We also flew back home on April 5th, which just so happens to be the worst day to do that because the Mario movie came out that day. And I planned this trip around so that I could watch the movie on April 7th, its original date. So thanks Nintendo for doing that. But anyway, we all got back home safe and sound, but let's be honest, our journey hasn't even begun yet. Okay, so we have done 2 out of 50 states. Now, for us to do this, I've rented a minivan for me and Carl so we'd have a little more space, and I planned out a route to get through all 48 states in about 3 weeks. I know that sounds insane, but Don't worry, I reached that point a long time ago, so this is just an average Tuesday for me. With Carl all healed
How
up,
many
we
external
were ready to go. The next big
battery
decision to make
sources
was
do you think
what
that they
our
have
name was
so that
gonna
they can
be.
play while they're in the
Epic Adventures,
route?
We were trying to pick between Sus Bus and Swaggin' Wagon, and we decided to go with Sus Bus because it's slightly less cringe. Within 20 minutes, though, we heard a loud noise in the back, and god damn it, our epic fridge setup got completely destroyed. The door was too heavy, and when we took a turn, all the content spilled out, including my cantaloupe! Oh, I love cantaloupe. I'm really sad about that.
That's
But
why
after
you
that
put
debacle
something
and
in front of the
rotating our
door.
fridge so the door wouldn't open, we headed to our first state, West Virginia. We got there a bit early, so we enjoyed some Capri Sun while waiting.
West Virginia.
What an idiot. Just have a fridge in your car. Duh. Come on, dude.
This GameStop
Yeah.
was actually pretty big. The ones near me aren't
Do you
nearly
like
this
Rockmelon?
massive, but otherwise, it sure was a GameStop. This time I picked up Mario Kart 8 Deluxe because I figured that Nintendo needed some sales on this. It's a struggling series, so you're welcome, Miyamoto. After that was a pretty quick drive to Maryland. This one was really cool because it has the Power to the Player slogan right on the front, which I've never seen at a storefront before. This was another pretty big store. This time I bought Cuphead and also signed up for the Power Up Reward members because I'm actually gonna save some money signing up for this.
Good stuff.
Power Up Pro member.
Dude, they just gave you power.
They gave me some power.
You got some power.
After that, we headed to another quick state, this one being Delaware. And, yeah, this GameStop isn't nearly as great as the other ones we've been to. The store was pretty small, and I don't know, it just kind of had a bad vibe. This time, I bought the Booster Course Pass DLC because, once again, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe needs an extra copy sold for the starving franchise. You're welcome, Miyamoto! But sadly, I didn't get to keep this cool card, so we were moderately upset. After that, we headed off to Pennsylvania. And on the way, Carl revealed how much he wants to be a part of the Amish. So one day, I hope he gets to fulfill that dream. We got to the Pennsylvania GameStop. This one had a lot of merch compared to the other ones, and it was kind of sick. They had actual GameStop hoodies.
You know what? It's called a gift card.
Just a regular old gift card. Yeah. Well, they can't not give that to you.
This is mine.
My credit card also decided to not work, so I had to switch to another one. I'm not surprised this happened, though. I've bought stuff in 4 different states in like 4 hours. But we weren't done yet, believe it or not. We still needed to hit up New Jersey for our last store of the day. This one was inside a massive mall, and the guy that worked there
Surprised
recognized me and
GameStop is
was
still
really
in business.
cool.
Me
I decided to
too!
buy Pokemon Legends Arceus at this one, and that's about it for the first road trip day. We decided to stay in New York City for the night, and my goodness, what a crazy first day. After walking through Times Square, we made our way to the next GameStop in New York City. This one was kind of cool because the ThinkGeek section was underneath the GameStop, but otherwise it looked the same. Frankly, they all looked the same, and I'm already getting tired of it. Oh, and I ended up buying Cooking Mama because why not? After that, we headed to Connecticut, and honestly, not much happened because it was so close. Want to guess what I bought, though? It was Among Us this time, and mostly because the cover looks really cool. Next, we went to Rhode Island. This GameStop was sketchy as hell because there were like 2 cars in the entire plaza.
There it is, on the left. Oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. This one kind of reminds me of the Delaware one, I'm not gonna lie.
It's just in the middle of nowhere. Like, look at, there's no, like, nobody is here. The parking lot is empty.
There's 2 cars.
I wanted to get out as soon as possible, so I picked up some Tyco and we made a move on. We had one more state to tackle today, which was Massachusetts. I really don't have anything to say about this store, except that it was kind of hot in there, so maybe, I don't know, turn on your AC? Anyway, I bought Crash 4 on the Switch, and then we headed to a hotel. This wasn't nearly as intense of a day, but honestly, we're gonna need these longer moments of rest. We may be 11 GameStops in, but there's a lot more to go in much, much bigger states to come. After about 2 hours, we made it to the New Hampshire GameStop. You may have noticed that this place looks the same as all the others, and I'm not even talking about the GameStop itself. It's surrounded by the same kind of strip malls. Like, I swear to God, there's always a freaking Lowe's or Home Depot near them too. Why are all these stores always so close together and laid out virtually the same? It's starting to drive me crazy. I just want some variety here. And also, does every GameStop wall have to be gray and black? How about some white? Or a light blue for a change? I did at least change my purchase a little bit. I got a GameStop shirt because I'm such a big fan, and I also grabbed Monster Hunter Stories too. Next, we went to Maine, and honestly, I really like this state. It's got a taste of Alaska's beautiful mountains without being complete overkill, and the GameStop location actually had different shit around it. Firehouse subs, Dunkin' Donuts, now that's what I'm talking about. And the store inside was even better. It smelled nice, and the floor was made of actual wood. This whole time, I just wanted some variety, and my question was answered. This time, I bought Luigi's Mansion 3, and then was off to Vermont. The route was a little wonky because we were forced to overlap over other states, so it took about 3.5 hours to get to Vermont. And this GameStop was, completely white? Why isn't stop colored in red? Like, I genuinely have no idea why this store and the app do this. Is this like new branding? And also, this store was extremely long. Like, seriously, you could run a marathon from one side to the other. After buying Game Builder Garage and the sun completely ruined our selfie, we were done for the day and not really looking forward to tomorrow. After the highs of hitting 3 to 4 GameStops a day, today we're driving from Vermont to Ohio. And as you can imagine, it took over 9 hours because New York is huge and there was absolutely nothing on the road. But hey, we're entering Ohio today. Yes, the hilarious meme state. And believe it or not, things actually got kind of wacky. Immediately getting into the state, some super loud bikers passed us. I went down the world's sketchiest hill. We missed getting into GameStop because the guy was going on break, and random fire trucks showed up at Target.
Why is there holes in the stop sign?
All of this in a span of like 20 minutes. Ohio is insane. So we had to wait until the GameStop was open again. We got inside, and guess what? It's a GameStop, and the guy that worked there also recognized me, and he was really cool. We actually found a copy of Metroid Prime Remastered, which happened to be the last one in stock. For what I thought would be a boring day, ended up being quite eventful at the end. Carl even prepared some food for us in a very special place.
Service station.
Another day, another GameStop. This time we started in Michigan, and there's really nothing to say except that it felt full and the walls are blue. Wow. Most of their walls are gray, so it's nice to at least see a different color. But yeah, I got Kirby in the Forgotten Land and headed down to Kentucky next, which took 5 hours. This one is the same goddamn thing. I bought Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, so I guess I'll have to get the first game as well. The Indiana GameStop was next, considering we were like an hour away. And this one was cool because we met up with Cam Tunist, who's been working on animations for the channel for the past year or so. So the end of the day was really fun, but otherwise it was just more driving and more GameStops. It's kind of crazy that we've already gone to 18 GameStops, but it's also crazy that we aren't even halfway there. Today, I was on a mission. When we got to Illinois, I decided that I was going to try to find every mainline Pokemon game on the Switch. Although getting there was a bit of a pain. Like, seriously, the way the strip mall was routed out was just nonsense. But once we got in there, I found some Pokemon games and I got Pokemon Violet. After that was a solid 2 hours to Wisconsin. We found a gas station on the way there that just said video gaming underneath it. Thanks for supporting the cause, Wisconsin. This GameStop was kind of interesting because it looks like Wingstop in Little Mexico is just like squishing the store in a strip mall sandwich. I didn't even notice the door until I got up close. And at this place, I found Pokemon Sword. I think having a goal to find certain games makes this a bit more fun because I'm so tired of the GameStop aesthetic. After that, we drove about 5 hours to Minnesota and stayed for the night. We're in Minnesota still, so of course we made our way to the Mall of America. I haven't been here in about 15 years, and it was amazing to see how much it's changed, yet stayed the same. The theme park in the middle of the mall is pretty much how it was before, but the store variety was so much better. There used to be 4 GameStops in this mall, but now there's only 1. This one was kind of cool. The register was in the middle of the store, and it felt more open-ended instead of just being a long strip. I found Pokemon Legends Arceus at this one, and Carl picked up a cute little Mighty plushie. Then we went to the Lego store. I took a picture with Lego Mario. Everyone thinks I look like a dad. Next, we went to Iowa, and we were kind of panicking with this one because it looks completely abandoned.
There's a big picture of Mario on this
and
GameStop.
Laura Croft, dude, this one, it looks
like no one's here.
This looks abandoned.
Is it abandoned?
Oh my god, is this open? Bro, did you take us to a defunct GameStop? Oh my god, I don't see anything in there. Oh my god, look, the sign is broken.
But I pulled the door open and holy shit, there's a store in here. Oh, and by the way, I know you want an update on our epic fridge situation. Yeah, well, basically the inverter just stopped working, so we had to buy another cooler, which kind of sucks a lot. Anyway, next was Missouri, which was our last one of the day. The store itself was nothing new, but it was pretty funny. There was some random kid in there that was kind of just flexing on us.
I've already bought quite a bit, but I can't believe I sold one ring that was a 14-karat gold ring that I got from breaking the floor on accident.
Wow.
For $200.
Jeez. Bro, kid was low-key flexing on this.
They didn't have any of the Pokemon games I needed, so I just grabbed Zelda Link's Awakening. And now that we're 1 week into driving, we're both still feeling pretty energized. Which is surprising considering we've been doing like 8 to 10 hour days, but I guess we're just that cool.
Oh wow.
Boy oh boy are we in for a long day. We need to somehow go from Missouri and end up all the way in North Dakota in 1 day. And before doing
that far?
a small detour to Kansas was required. And this place was actually not at a strip mall. I know, it's kind of shocking. Instead, it was this nice little walking plaza area. The GameStop was nothing special, and once again, I didn't find any new Pokemon games, so I just grabbed Splatoon 3.
Do they have stock in
After that,
GameStop
we headed
or
out to
something?
Nebraska, and I really didn't
Is
like
that why
this
they're
one.
doing this
For
video
every
on
GameStop,
on
I've been getting
GameStop?
forced to listen to the spiel about the protection plan, so I've come to expect it at this point, and I know the employees are forced to bring that up, but holy crap, the guy there was going hard on the upsell. I put my freaking credit card in the machine after declining the protection plan offer, and I was still getting sold on it. So this GameStop was kind of annoying, but at least I got Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, and this is the 25th GameStop, so we're finally halfway there. After that, we headed into the very tip of South Dakota. At this point, we've been driving for about 8 hours and we're starting to get a bit tired. So it didn't help that this state was extremely windy and cold. Plus, we had to take a freaking dirt road to get there because one of the main roads were shut down. But eventually, we got to a mall and lo and behold, a GameStop. This one was a lot nicer. I actually really like the purple walls in this place. I bought Pokemon Scarlet here, and guess what? Our day isn't done yet. In fact, we have another 6 hours to go just so we can get to North Dakota's GameStop. And this is when we experience something we've never really experienced driving before. If you've never been on the east side of South Dakota, there is almost nothing on the road. There's almost no drivers, no animals, no lights, no turns, no anything. And it happened to be raining and incredibly windy, so we were wobbling around in misery. All
yeah, but do they own stock in it?
A straight road that was completely and entirely flat. And you might think that we just got kind of bored at this point, but in fact, the complete opposite happened. We're pretty used to seeing things like, you know, civilization when driving, but this completely empty void of a highway just kept going. It looked and went on like this for almost 4 hours. Like, it was genuinely eerie because of how empty it was. We were actually feeling pretty nervous, realizing how different this place looked from home, and just how far away we were too. And you might be wondering, why did it take so long? Well, there just so happens to be almost no GameStops in the Midwest. According to Google, there are a total of 6 in South Dakota and 7 in North Dakota. So we had no choice but to drive deep into these states to reach them. After what felt like hell yesterday, getting to the GameStop in North Dakota was pretty easy. We may have arrived early by accident, but once we got there, I was surprised at just how wide and expansive it was. And would you look at that? I finally found one of the Pokemon Let's Go games, so that's cool. After another 6 hours of driving through the beautiful mountains of North Dakota and Montana, we got to our last one for the day. There's absolutely nothing to say about Montana's store. I got Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle to complete the series, and we drove another 4 hours to Wyoming. Oh, and by the way, there's also only 5 GameStops in Wyoming, so that's why the drive was so long in this state too. Even though the views in the west are breathtaking, I think this drive is really taking a toll on us now. We're about halfway through at least, but oh my god is this tiring. I feel nothing walking into GameStop now. I only get excited seeing the store as a checkpoint and nothing else. When I got breakfast this morning, there was nobody around. If this moment doesn't describe the entirety of Wyoming, then I don't know what else.
Was that food coloring in those
but
eggs?
First things first, these
they
nuts.
look more yellow
we tried
than
Mr.
they
Beast's new
than
chocolate
eggs normally
bar,
look.
and honestly, it was pretty gross. Like, I couldn't even finish mine. Look, I love what Jimmy's doing. He seems like a great guy, but his chocolate really needs an upgrade. Moving on though, it's GameStop time. This one was interesting for all the wrong reasons. We got in there and everything seemed normal at first, but when I was buying the Zelda Skyward Sword remake, Carl found some DC Hybrid NFT cards for sale. Wait, what? GameStop actually went through with selling NFTs? That's honestly kind of hilarious. But next we had a 5-hour drive to Idaho. Actually getting there was kind of nuts because we had to drive through literal mountains for several hours. The GameStop itself didn't have much going on. I got Puyo Puyo Tetris because I'm obsessed, and that was about it for the day. We made our way to Oregon, and strangely, I still have a lot of energy despite how long this trip has been. Carl's definitely getting a bit more wiped, which, you know, I get it. We've been doing some super long days in the sus bus. Next, we arrive in Oregon. This GameStop is actually kind of huge compared to the other ones. Carl got Metroid Prime because we somehow found a second one out in the wild, and I got Pokemon Shield. At this point, I just need Let's Go Pikachu to have all the mainline Pokemon games, so I'll be on the hunt for this final one. I also found a You Got Luigi shirt, which was funny, so it was a nice GameStop for what it was. Next, we made our way to the very border of Washington while fighting off a nasty snowstorm. I mean, we got like 2 minutes into Washington and boom, there it is. This one was also pretty pleasant. It smelled nice and the employee there was really cool. I was gonna get Mega Man Battle Network Collection, but it was sold out, so I settled with Mario Party Superstars. After that, we found a Tostitos truck and we made our way back to Oregon and got a hotel smack dab in the middle so that our drive to California wouldn't be as daunting. Okay, so 2 horrible things happened.
Nice.
1, there is a lot of snow outside. And 2, I shaved. Wow, look at that, Redding, California. It was kind of funny being in the snow and then beautiful sunshine 4 hours later. This was another small GameStop. I grabbed Kirby Star Allies because it's not as bad as everyone says it is. After that, we drove another 4 hours to San Bruno because we have a very interesting day tomorrow. But before that, I had some actual drama happen that I just have to rant about. So every night, I need to get on my computer to get the footage off our phones and buy the next hotel. For some reason, I couldn't connect to the internet. So I ran a test and oh my god, my freaking network card doesn't work anymore. And look, the computer's 6 years old, it's aging, I get it, but it wants to break right now? So after already driving for 8 hours this day, we were forced to go to Best Buy so I could get a USB Wi-Fi adapter. After going back to the hotel, it doesn't work either. Oh wait, it just needs drivers. Oh great, the drivers are stored on the CD or a website. Wow. That's just great, because every computer still has a CD drive and I don't have internet right now. So basically, Carl got on his laptop to get the driver, we put it on an external drive, I plugged that into my laptop, installed the driver, restarted my computer, and finally, I have internet. Holy crap, was that a saga.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be real. It's been a struggle to keep up with all this driving, so thank God we visited YouTube headquarters today. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to film anything inside, but I got to meet my partner manager in person, which was awesome. It was basically like a college campus for adults, which is pretty amazing. This was a really fun day, and we only had to drive a few hours to get to Nevada for tomorrow's GameStop. Actually, getting there was a bit intimidating because the snow on these mountains was piled up like 10 feet tall, but we made it, and that's about that. Take a wild guess what happened today. We went to the next GameStop in Nevada and it was fine. But I did grab Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, so I have all the mainline games on the Switch now, but the day isn't over yet. We had to make a real quick 9-hour drive to Utah, and most of it was 1-lane roads in the middle of nowhere. In fact, we were on Route 50 today, which is infamously known as the loneliest road in America. Here's what's crazy though. We got through it so quickly that we somehow made it to the Utah GameStop before it closed. I have no idea how that happened, considering how massive both of these states are, but alas, I picked up Mario Party Deluxe in this one because it's a dying franchise, so you're welcome, Chris Pratt. We're actually about a week away from finishing the whole thing, which is exciting.
Well, that really depends. I mean, they don't let Koji stay
before things pick up again. From one massive state to another. Up next was Arizona. And yes, this state has the Grand Canyon. Did we stop there? No, of course not. We went to a mall to hit up the next GameStop because, let's just be honest, people, I've got more Pro Reward points than the Grand Canyon does, so that basically makes it a loser. This time, I got WarioWare Get It Together because that's a decent enough video game. And a few hours later, we made our way to New Mexico. And yes, we did drive through Albuquerque.
True. Very
and I'm pretty sure we saw Hank pull someone over. But yeah, this GameStop was also just fine. They're all fine. I'm really starting to get nauseous going into them since this is like, I don't know, number 37. I bought Metroid Dread because I got Metroid Prime like a week ago. After that, we made our way to Santa Fe to stay the night because we had one more long day ahead of us. Okay, so I was pretty tired today because I had spent several hours last night checking this edit for the 3D Mario Marathon video. Thank you guys for watching that one, by the way, because it was hell to record and edit it all together. But anyway, we drove up to good old Colorado, found a green Walmart, which was scary because they're supposed to be blue only, and this GameStop has Power to the Players on it. However, we got in and I tried to get Mario Strikers. It wasn't
I wonder how the
stock.
sponsor felt going. You want how much?
Mario Golf, guess what? Wasn't in stock. You know what? Whatever. Just how about CTR Team Racing Nitro Fueled? Yeah. So that was a bit odd, but after that, it was another 9 hours of driving to Oklahoma for our next day. This was another super long drive, but thank frickin' God we've just about made it out of the big states in America. This is it. We have finally gotten through all of the biggest hurdles. We went to the Oklahoma GameStop, and at this point, I am paying zero attention to what the stores looked like. I'm really just interested in the game selection. This one had a combo pack for Sonic Mania and Team Sonic Racing, and I don't know, I feel like this might be rare someday, so I picked it up. I also love how our selfie game has somehow gotten worse and worse the farther we've gotten into this trip. But after that, we made our way to the very east of Texas, and you can tell because some driver had carpets in his pickup with no bungee cords. So we got to the Texas GameStop. Carl was asleep, and I mean, I don't blame him. I don't know how the hell I still have energy after almost a month of doing this. And then we got inside, and yep, it was another GameStop. I bought Mario Golf Super Rush, and Carl got Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I also found a spider inside the gas machine. I'm not sure how we got in there or how bugs get in there to begin with, but I'm very impressed. Another 3 or so hours later, we got ourselves into Louisiana, and this GameStop had Clubhouse games, and let's just be honest, it's one of the best Switch games, so of course I had to get it. And after that, we were basically done for the day. It feels really nice to be in the smaller states again, and we currently only have 9 GameStops left. Before going to the Arkansas GameStop, we got some pretzels at Walmart, because you're required to eat these damn things on any road trip you go on, no matter how tired you are of eating them. I got Super Mario Maker 2, and I like the selection, but just... This was the first day where I was sick of driving and just wanted to get home, but thankfully, Carl's Blue Eyes White Dragon was giving us the energy we needed to finish the trip. Next, we went to Mississippi, and yes, we did listen to Mississippi Queen on the way there, thanks for asking. This GameStop had Splatoon 2, and since I've already sunk 900 hours into it, it only made sense to get a physical after all this time, you know? And we had one more GameStop to get to, which was in Tennessee. This was the moment when my worst nightmare happened.
What the? Oh no. Oh no, dude.
We're gonna have to find another one, like, right now.
Within like 10, 15
Really?
minutes,
I
'cause
feel
it's
like
almost
everybody
7
wants that
o'clock.
one.
Thankfully, we were in a pretty big town, so there was another one like 15 minutes away, but that was still a bit nerve-wracking. Imagine if that happened in South Dakota. We would have been so screwed. At this GameStop, I picked up Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for John Cartwright, and for John Cartwright alone. And that's about it for today. Only a few more days to go, and I am more than ready for this to be over with. Now we're in Alabama, and yes, we did listen to Sweet Home Alabama on the way there, thanks for asking. This was another pretty average GameStop.
Living home in a trailer.
Because it's a pretty decent game. And after that, we drove 8 hours to Florida to prepare for tomorrow. And that's it. This was one of the most boring days of the entire trip.
Hey, that's Miss Harley's neck of the woods.
I've been collecting games. What have you been collecting on this trip?
I've been collecting little shampoos and soaps. Wow. From every hotel we've been staying at.
Today was going to be a pretty short day, actually, but things didn't start as planned. We got to the GameStop in Florida at 10 a.m. because that's when it said it was open, but apparently the hours were changed to 12 p.m. Frustrated about this, we ate at Whataburger just to try it, and then we found another GameStop in a mall. This one was very small, but well condensed. I found Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, but also Monopoly,
He stole the
so
soap.
of course I had to get both of them. Monopoly
That's
on the
better
Switch
than
is
dropping it.
actually really fun too. Carl also
He's
grabbed
on
a
a road
GameStop
trip
t-shirt,
with another
so
man.
welcome to the club. But after that, we made our way to Georgia, and this one was in another mall. I grabbed new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, and I went to the final state of the day, South Carolina.
What? There's like no... Where's the stroke? There's no stroke. On the letters.
What? The logo looks naked. Add the stroke. I walked in and grabbed Nintendo Switch Sports. Why did I buy this game? I don't even like it that much. I just see big cardboard box. I'm like, wow, cool. Well, it's finally come to this. The final day of our trip with only 2 GameStops remaining. It's honestly really surreal that we're actually going to make it to all 50 states. While I'm incredibly excited to get back home and go back to a normal life, I'm kind of going to miss all this traveling. It's been such a fun adventure, and I really needed it after the stresses I was going through the past year or two. But anyway, we got into the North Carolina GameStop, and I ended up getting Cuphead physically. And the employee there was really awesome. We were talking about other great indie games, and he brought up The Messenger, and I'm just like, holy crap, someone else has actually played that game. But after that, it was just one more to go. Was this final one gonna be an epic finale of grand proportions? Will we find the rarest and best Switch games of all time? Nope, it was a GameStop. The process this time was a little bit different though, because I decided to finally use the Power Up Rewards points. I picked up Super Mario Party and used 45,000 points to save $45 on this game. That might sound great, but actually doing this is very ass backwards. To actually use your points, you have to pull up the app on your phone, scroll down to In-Store Rewards, and then select a coupon in these specific dollar amounts. And you can only scan 1 coupon at a time, so we had to scan multiple coupons to reach $45. But alas, we took our final selfie, and oh my god, we're done! We actually did it! All we had to do was drive home. So we got back, brought our stuff inside, and Carl drove the car back to the rental place while I followed from behind.
Man, I am glad to be back home and... What the...
Is that a buddy?
Nathaniel?
Where's Nathaniel?
He's... Where
have you guys been? It's been 3 weeks!
We were on a road trip.
Why did you bring me?
We didn't think you wanted to come.
Well, I'm back from the trip. I've got some fun stats to share. I lost my video camera. Now I'm using a new one. Now you might be wondering, how did I lose my video camera? Well, camera went in the car. I come back, and it's not in the car. So, I don't know what happened to it, but anyway, this is my new video camera. You might be wondering, how many miles did we actually drive to achieve all of this? Well, it was 11,283 miles. I know, pretty insane. But the real question is, did I actually save any money using the Power Up Reward membership? So basically, I spent $2,526.13 at GameStop, but only $2,366.26 was put on the Power Up Rewards membership. However, everything that Carl purchased was also put on this same membership, so the actual amount that was put into the membership was $2,669.55. This gave us 59,324 life points, or the equivalent of $59. We earned $59 from that. And technically, that's not even true, because we technically got 10,000 life points after spending $15 on the membership itself. So actually, we earned 54,324 points, or $54. I should also mention that you do get a $5 coupon every month that you can use on top of your points. You also get first dibs on like new consoles and stuff.
For them to be sharing this information, they must have stock in it. They must.
Realistically speaking, it's probably only worth getting this membership if you actually buy games all the time, like you actually want brand new games, then maybe it'd be worth the value a little bit. But I still feel like there's other places like local shops or even like Walmart where you'd probably end up saving more money. As you can imagine, this video was ridiculously expensive to make, so a big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring it. Wow, thanks guys. And it was made possible thanks to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Aw shucks, you guys know what Squarespace is at this point. They're the best and most powerful place to create the slickest websites. You can connect your audience and generate revenue through members-only content, manage members, send emails, and leverage audience insight, all on one easy-to-use platform. You can make a community on your website with a fully integrated
I'm skipping the ad read.
Comments, replies, and likes. Use their blog.
Oh, the fall on the end was a nice touch.
The internet is amazing.
This one caught my attention,
It's
so I
created
decided
the
to click.
opportunity for people all over the world to share their incredible talents, or lack thereof. But for every honest content creator, there seem to be 5 others determined to lie, cheat, and scheme their way to the top. From phony construction projects to
I'm
fake
an honest
personal
one.
drama,
I put lots
the
of work
internet is
into my
home to it
YouTube
all.
channel.
So I hope you're wearing your cringe goggles, because here are some fake videos embarrassingly exposed.
So if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'd get on that.
Faking a break-in. The phenomena of the fake YouTube family has become more and more common over the years. And if you don't know what I mean, there's a sect of YouTubers whose whole brand is showing off their wealth and concocting fake dramatic events for clicks. Most of the time they portray themselves as perfect, unless they need a few more clicks.
Nobody's
then
perfect.
they get into some manufactured drama and become poor, hard-done-by babies. Well, the Ace family is this stereotype at its very worst. Comprised of Austin McBroom, his wife Catherine, and their 3 children, their YouTube channel has over 18 million subscribers, and counting. They've been at the center of countless crazy controversies. But back in 2018, they caused arguably the most infuriating when they uploaded a video titled, "Someone Broke Into Our House." Viewers first got suspicious when Austin pointed out that the so-called invaders hadn't stolen any of the extremely valuable electronics scattered around the family's home. But the video only gets weirder when one of the policemen who arrived on the scene acts like this.
My guy right here, he's helping us out. He's part of the Ace family.
Not exactly professional. Well, it turns out this man isn't an officer at all. Somebody recognized him as an actor who can be hired as a fake cop. A viewer contacted the company representing the fake officer and, by posing as the McBroom's financial advisor, managed to get a copy of the receipt, made out to none other than Austin McBroom. Yikes. Of course, the McBrooms refute this and deny the event was staged, but if I was broken into, I wouldn't worry about posing for a banger YouTube thumbnail. Would you? And this wouldn't be the last time they'd get into trouble. Since then, the family's been the target of multiple lawsuits totaling millions of dollars.
Yeah, woulda.
Jeez. Unfortunately, despite
Could you
claiming
imagine
that
if
they
I could
quit
afford to go
YouTube
on
at
a
the end
road
of
trip across
2022, the
America?
family are still
That would be
uploading
nuts.
videos in 2023.
I'd be sick of you all by the end of it.
Sounds like it's
I'm
time
kidding.
for another
I would
lawsuit
not.
to me. Sketchy sign-off.
No,
All
I'd
gamers
be
know that eventually,
going,
even
"But
the
I
best
can't
games get
stream.
old. So you stop playing them and move on, right? Well, if your name's Sketchek, apparently not. Sketchek joined YouTube back in 2011 and quickly became known for posting impressive montages of him playing the online shooter Team Fortress 2. Hundreds of thousands of people flocked to see his skills, and by 2015 he'd accumulated a healthy fan base of subscribers. Everything was going swimmingly. Until one day he suddenly released a video titled Closure, where he announced he had a terminal illness and wouldn't be able to upload anymore. With that, he said goodbye to a devastated audience of fans and stopped uploading. Despite his absence, Sketchek's legacy lived on, with countless tributes pouring in for the fallen gamer. Team Fortress 2's developer Valve even immortalized him in-game with an item effect called Sketchek's Bequest. And that was that. Sketchek was gone. Or was he? 3 years later, Reddit user Alpha Owl made a detailed post on the Team Fortress 2 subreddit with some startling revelations. For one, the Closure video had been privatized, so someone must have logged into Sketchek's channel to do so. The post went on to say that people had found his public profile on the gaming platform Steam and added him as a friend. Shockingly, the invitations were accepted. Now it gets really weird. Anyone who'd been accepted as Sketchek's friend was sent this ominous GIF. Turns out the GIF contained cryptic binary on it that, when translated, led people down a wacky internet rabbit hole of obtuse images and private videos. Eventually, those following the trail came to a video that wasn't private. Though it's since been taken down, it featured none other than Sketchek himself promising new content after the 3-year break. People were overjoyed he was alive, but they also had some big questions. Like, what the heck happened to him? Well, later on, Sketchek provided the answers.
Oh, you're still
They were
around, Lucy.
shocking. The gamer wasn't just alive, he'd never been ill at all. Sometime in 2015, he decided he was gaming too much for his own good.
So rather than announce his retirement like a normal human being, he faked his own death. Right. Apparently he went out in such a dramatic way so it'd be really hard for him to return. Only it didn't work. He ended up missing Team Fortress so much that he devised a grand scheme to announce his resurrection. But the guilt of lying to so many people proved too much, and he ended up admitting to the whole sordid affair. Understandably, people were pretty appalled. So much so that Valve removed his name from the in-game item effect. Ouch. The YouTuber admitted what he did was wrong and apologized for his actions, though his grand return to YouTube didn't turn out so grand after all. As of this video's release, his last upload was about a year ago.
Because nobody gave two shits about it anymore.
Which is more than I can say about who we've got next. But now seems like as good a time as any to remind you that honesty is my middle name. If you don't want to miss out on any more incredible true stories like this one, then be sure to smack the like and subscribe buttons below. All done? Great. Let's wade back into the marshes of fraud. TikTok foe. If TikTok has taught us one thing as a species, it's that humans will do pretty much anything for attention. One user named Ticks and Roses took this to a whole new level of extreme. They rose to internet fame back in 2020 for raising awareness of Tourette's syndrome. Ticks and Roses, aka Emerald, regularly vlogged their daily life and the extreme verbal and physical outburst, or tics, they were subject to.
Oh no.
They also ran an online yarn dyeing business, which they promoted on their Ticks and Roses account as well as a separate dedicated account.
What?
Hi, this is Emerald with Stardust Fiber Studio. I am one of the owners.
Pardon me?
I also do awareness videos.
Pardon me again, sorry for burping near the microphone.
Now here's the rub.
Thank you
when
for the head
some
pat
of these
surgery.
separate videos became more well known, viewers noticed that Emerald was on camera for minutes at a time without a single tick. The public had seen just how frequent and explosive their tics were on their main account, so what the heck was going on? Emerald dismissed concerns by saying it was possible for them to go short periods without any symptoms, which satisfied people.
I've not got the talk out loud
until a
going at the moment.
54-minute
I'm
live
sorry.
stream of
Imagine
Emerald
it.
emerged promoting
I
their
see
yarn
this.
company, in which they
then
didn't tick
she
once.
might
The
be
pressure
taken
was
out of
on.
that.
In an effort to prove their story, Emerald posted a video sharing what they claimed was their most recent doctor's note. A good strategy, if it didn't look so fake.
I am looking into other
Commenters
text-to-speech
pointed out that PTSD
things,
was listed twice in Emerald's medical history.
but I haven't got
Doctors
it
don't
set
use
yet.
the word kid, and most damningly of all, the hospital logo on the note was wrong. In response, Emerald deleted the video and their entire Instagram. This really annoyed people. Real Tourette's sufferers started reacting to their videos, pointing out anything they thought was fake, and a subreddit was even set up to gather evidence against Emerald. Then something happened that blew the whole thing wide open. Emerald's sister posted on the subreddit confirming Emerald didn't have Tourette's. Apparently, the TikToker had cut all ties with their family years before, despite them only wanting the best for them. But their sister confirmed they had a history of twisting the truth. After this revelation, Emerald posted one last video announcing they were done with raising awareness for Tourette's. They didn't tick once the whole duration. Then they deactivated their Ticks and Roses account. Although they posted a few more times on their business account, they stopped in June 2021 and haven't been seen since. Phew, what a strange, sad tale. Surprisingly, faking disorders is an increasingly common occurrence on the internet, despite how disrespectful it is. You think we've seen the last of Ticks and Roses? I'm not so sure. Let me know down in the comments. Chocolate bar. If you like candy, London's Leicester Square is home to the biggest candy store on Earth at a whopping 35,000 square feet. Jeez. The colossal store is called M&M's World, and it's so fantastically chocolatey it'd make Willy Wonka himself proud. According to TikTok user Stuart Laws, however, candy isn't the only thing the place sells.
We are looking for the secret cocktail bar. We're looking for a lift or something like that. At the moment, it feels like we're going to have to go down to get up.
Yes, in December 2021, Law shared a video of him searching for a supposed secret cocktail bar inside the store. I mean, the place is massive, so there could be one, right?
Like a secret library thing opening up. That's smart because it says closed.
Believe it or not, that didn't work. Yet lo and behold, just seconds later... So let's get this out of the way. No, there is no secret M&M's World Cocktail Bar. These two are stood in what looks like a restroom holding drinks they brought in with them for that sweet TikTok clout. That's all. The drinks don't even look that good. How do I know this? Well, one of the store's employees debunked it in Law's comment section. Boom. Granted, there are also commenters jokingly talking about entering the bar themselves, but there's absolutely zero evidence this place actually exists. Laws is a producer, director, and comedian, so he posted the video knowing that any publicity is good publicity. He'd even tweeted the idea a couple of months beforehand. So forget cocktails, but old Law definitely left with his tail between his legs. Fishy fisherman. Now, I'm no fisherman, but even I know that to catch a fish,
I didn't realize that what I was doing was out of frame. Here's the hand I'm drawing.
Right? You might not expect to find eggs, cola, and Mentos in a tackle box. Yet back in 2019, a bizarre fishing video uploaded by the YouTube account Technique Tools went viral, and it appeared to use those exact things as bait. The fisherman pours the odd ingredients into this suspicious hole, and within seconds, catfish suddenly come flying out of it. What? The internet was sent into a frenzy, and before long, copycat videos were popping up all over the place, supposedly showing similar techniques. But how the heck did it work? Well, the most prominent theory suggested that the hole led to a larger body of water and that the egg attracted hungry catfish which swam over from it. Then the violent reaction between the cola and Mentos created a huge amount of carbon dioxide. This started to suffocate the fish, making them leap out of the water and into the clever fisherman's hands. I've got to admit, it does sound kind of plausible, in a wacky way. As strange as it sounds, catfish really do like bird eggs. They're a brilliant source of protein. However, cracking one into a hole in the ground isn't going to get you the catch of the day. And pouring cola in as well is just a waste of good soda. Yep, the reality is the videos are all big fat frauds.
Well,
Before
yeah, the
filming,
fact
the
that...
creators would dig a hole in the ground and create a short tunnel, leading to a second hole out of camera shot. After one guy filmed themselves pouring the mix of foodstuffs into the first hole, a second person would push fish down the other hole, forcing them to swim through the tunnel and pop out the other end. Technique Tools actually admitted this is what they'd done in some of their video
but the fish were coming out backwards, so it kind of proved that it was fake from the get-go.
The videos are fake fishing techniques and at worst, animal cruelty. Suffocating fish for views really isn't cool. Luckily, the fad seems to have been left very much in the past. So whatever you do, don't be a copycat fish and try it yourself, okay? Pranks for nothing. Sure, some prank channels aren't too bad, but most of them are so chaotically cringe-inducing, they make me want to throw up. Enter Vitali ZDTV.
They all are, if you ask me.
Since 2011, Vitali made a name for himself with various tasteless prank videos. He'd do everything from pretend to fart on people to antagonize and harass
just
strangers'
a curious
girlfriends
question
at
for the
beach.
6 of you watching.
How he didn't get
What do you
beaten
think of
up,
this
I'll
cleavage?
never know. Either way, the videos gained him a loyal following and a staggering number of views. As time went on, however, his audience began to notice a shift in the feel of his content. Then, during a confusing YouTube beef with fellow prankster FouseyTube, it came to light that Vitali was faking his pranks. Though he'd started out filming real reactions, at some point along the way he'd begun hiring actors to pose as members of the public. After the truth was out, Vitali's reputation quickly deteriorated, and with it his following. Once seen as a controversial but genuine prankster, he was increasingly viewed as nothing but a mean-spirited,
And in case you're wondering, yes, I am
money-getting
actually wearing
faker.
these socks right now.
And things would go from bad to worse. After several run-ins with the law, one culminating in a 5-day stint in an Egyptian prison for climbing the pyramids.
But how nice
hit
is
rock
this
bottom.
lace? I
In
would
April
love to wear
2020,
a dress
the
that
YouTuber
had
a
lace like
violent,
this.
unprovoked altercation with an innocent woman in Miami Beach and was arrested on home turf. As a result, he had to pay out $30,000
Look at Koji's foot in the
to
background
victim,
there. It's just
but unfortunately
standing
swerved the
out.
prison
Yep.
sentence. Big prankster is one thing, but violent criminal? There's no coming back from that one. Even so, he's
I'm
still
not so good
posting
at
to
hands,
YouTube, and
so
now
I'm
even
taking my
makes
time to
videos
try and
for,
get it done.
a
Right.
more adult site. Yeah, no thanks. I see enough terrible acting on Netflix. Primitive power tools. I tried putting up my new IKEA shelving last week and ended up getting frustrated, eating a tub of vanilla ice cream and calling my dad to get him to do it instead. But some people are far better at constructing things than I am, like Australian John Plant, who started the YouTube channel Primitive Technology back in 2015. Plant builds a huge variety of things from shelters all the way to trebuchets, and uses nothing but the resources he can find outside to do so.
I've seen some of these videos.
It's super impressive, and he's built a huge following on the platform. But with success comes imitation. Cheap imitation. The creatively named Primitive Technology Idea channel is just one of these mimics and began uploading its own construction videos a year or so after Plant. The people behind it aren't happy with just lifting Plant's channel name and concept.
How's my hand looking?
They seem to want to outdo the original. So rather than shelters, their videos feature lavish over-the-top structures like miniature water parks, all supposedly made by hand.
Yeah, I have seen these.
The only thing is, those hands weren't using sticks like the video makes you think. They were using power tools and operating heavy machinery. What? Yes, to put it bluntly, the videos are all lies. Look at this. See anything off? Now let's zoom here. Yep, there it is. Despite trying to portray the builds as only done by a small group of people with primitive tools, extra workmen can clearly be seen in the background of certain shots. What's more, tire tracks left by an excavator can be seen out in the open on some videos.
I'm also pretty proud of how my thighs look in this
guy
picture.
Was certainly not made by that stick. Yeesh. Who do they think they're fooling? Well, according to their 6 million strong subscriber count, a lot of people. So as embarrassing as this is for them, I'm sure all that YouTube money's helping lessen the shame. I'd build a bridge and get over it, but I can't.
I suck at hands, so I'm trying really hard.
Cringe at 3 a.m. It answered. There's one YouTube trend so ridiculous it's made me question my faith in humanity on multiple occasions. If you've never heard of it, prepare your world to be shattered. Real grown adults are pretending to call up cartoon characters at 3 a.m. and acting terrified at the conversations that supposedly ensue.
Really?
Seriously. Enter J Station, the single most infamous example of the 3 a.m. YouTuber. As cringy as this content is, it is meant for children, and it's relatively harmless, if brain rot doesn't count as a disease. J Station's content wasn't all harmless, though. The hyperactive content creator used to post videos pretending to contact departed celebrities with a Ouija board, which is weird enough in the first place. Only he did it immediately after said celebrities had passed. Jeez. Naturally, this disrespectful behavior was panned by adults familiar to the channel. Despite the host of negative criticism, though, Jay went out of his way to take things even further. In 2020, he posted a video claiming his girlfriend, Alexia, had tragically passed away in a car accident. In the now deleted video, Jay unconvincingly sobbed as he informed his followers of the news. Later, he uploaded another video supposedly visiting the spot where she lost her life to pay his respects.
We're gonna miss you.
With his untrustworthy past in mind, some people were rightfully skeptical about the sad turn of events, but many gave him the benefit of the doubt. He couldn't fake anything as bad as that, right? Well, not long after the second video released, Jay uploaded a third, and this one would prove to be his downfall. It was another 3 a.m. challenge, but this time he claimed to contact Alexia's ghost by a Ouija board. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Following the release of this third video, a skeptical viewer rang the Toronto and Ottawa police services to inquire about Alexia, and found out that sure enough, no car accident had been reported. After this, Alexia revealed she was in fact still alive and had been coerced into faking her death by Jay as a ploy for views.
Oh my god.
It takes a special kind of person to fake the passing of a loved one, and an even more special person to try and profit from it. Jay is that special person. Well, it didn't pay this time. Jay lost his relationship, his channel, and what meager scraps of his reputation he had left. Yeesh. Since then, he's repeatedly created new channels to try and evade YouTube's wrath. All have failed, so stay tuned for my next video where I'll be using a Ouija board to try and contact Jay's career. Fake hate. Jesse Smollett is an actor and singer known for his role on the popular TV show Empire. That said, most people know him better for his career-destroying 2019 shenanigans. In January of that year, Smollett reported to the Chicago police that he'd been assaulted. According to him, two men violently ambushed him in what appeared to be a hate crime because of Smollett's race and homosexuality. A large-scale investigation was launched, and Smollett was bombarded with love and support from many high-profile sources. In interviews, he described the incident in detail and spoke in depth on his emotions throughout the ordeal.
See, that's
when it came
just
to the
skeevy.
investigation, however, Smollett was suspiciously less forthcoming. He claimed he was making a call at the time of the incident, so police requested his phone to corroborate the story. Strangely, he refused them. Eventually, in early February, he offered up phone records, but significant parts of them were missing. Then, a few days later, police arrested two persons of interest, brothers Abimbola and Olabinjo Osundaro, who'd worked alongside Smollett on Empire. What they said under questioning blew the whole thing wide open. They admitted he'd paid them to stage the entire affair.
What the shit?
Police corroborated the brothers' timeline of events using GPS tracking and phone records. But why would Smollett do such a thing? Well, apparently because he wasn't happy with his salary. By staging a hate crime, he'd hoped it would highlight inequality and give his career a boost, along with his pay. Jeez.
How the fuck can he sleep at night?
Unfortunately for him, the ploy failed. He was charged with filing a false police report, arrested, and the whole world learned the attack was faked. The disgraced actor was ordered to pay over $145,000 and sentenced to 150 days in jail. Damn. But even with a wealth of evidence stacked against him, he refused to admit he was guilty.
If I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of black Americans in this country for over 400 years and the fears of the LGBTQ community. Your Honor, I respect you and I respect the jury, but I did not do this.
Even as he was escorted from the courtroom,
Right.
Smollett protested his innocence and tried to paint himself as a martyr. But all of it was one big lie. Man, empires are supposed to leave legacies, but all that's left of Smollett's is shame. Plane wreck. You'd think that people who've experienced success outside of YouTube would be less likely to fake videos for attention, right? Wrong. Trevor Jacob is an extreme sports athlete with an impressive resume. He's participated in competitions for MMA, BMX, and motocross, and even represented the U.S. in snowboarding at the Winter Olympics. That's quite the resume. Jacob also had a YouTube channel where he'd upload extreme stunts, stories from his life, and the occasional stereotypical YouTube challenge. In December of 2021, however, he uploaded a video that caught attention for all the wrong reasons. While flying his private plane and apparently trying to scatter the ashes of his departed friend, he supposedly noticed a fault with the plane's engine and was forced to parachute from the vehicle.
Yes, I remember
Jacob
this
was
one.
fine, but the plane plummeted to its doom. Pretty dramatic. The video raised eyebrows for various reasons. For starters, the plane had several cameras attached to capture different angles, but it was only supposed to be a routine flight. Secondly, pilots reacting to the video noted that the door of the plane was unlatched before the engine even cut out, almost as if Jacob was expecting to open it. On top of that, he was already wearing a parachute. Jacob claimed he always does this, but there are lots of other clips online of him flying without one. All sounds pretty damn suspicious so far, doesn't it? And there's also the fact that in the now notorious video, he made absolutely zero efforts to fix the issue with his plane, communicate for help, or find a safe emergency landing spot. All things he would have been trained to do. Instead, he rushed straight to jumping on out. Yeah, this one's cut and dry. Jacob orchestrated the whole thing for those sweet, sweet views. And he didn't do it very well either. The huge faux pas garnered widespread criticism, provoking the Federal Aviation Administration to revoke his pilot's license for reckless behavior and ban him from reapplying.
And also, didn't he end up
Jacob,
with,
however, showed no remorse, claiming that people
littering
simply
fines?
chose to be offended. What a piece of work. He was only intending to crash the plane, so he must be pretty upset that his whole reputation went down with it. And on that note, that's about all the secondhand embarrassment I can handle for one day. Had you already seen any of the clips I showed you today? Which made you cringe the most? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.
Damn.
prominent piece found in the Warrens Occult Museum, trapped inside a glass case with a sign that
I'm
reads,
happy to
"Warning,
take videos from
positively do
people.
not open." This Raggedy
We're
Ann
now
doll
back
was
on my
initially
fullbacks.
purchased in a thrift store in 1970 by a mother looking for a birthday present for her daughter Donna. Donna, who was in college at the time and shared an apartment with her roommate Angie, loved the doll at first and took it home with her. Over the course of the next few days, Donna and Angie started to notice something odd about the doll. It seemed to move around the house on its own,
My
never
favorite
where
to
they
rub
had
it.
left it, and it would change in position. One time they even found it standing on its feet. Then strange messages written on scraps of paper started to appear all over their apartment, looking as if they were written by a child. A bit freaked out, Donna and Angie called a medium, who told them that the doll was possessed by a little girl named Annabelle, who had died in their apartment building years ago. Annabelle told the medium that she liked the two girls and wanted to stay with them. The young woman allowed it, but much to their dismay, they would soon find out that Annabelle wasn't who she said she was. One of their male friends named Lou stayed the night at their apartment and woke up in the middle of the night to find Annabelle next to him, appearing to move. The doll then tried to strangle him, and the next morning he woke up to find himself covered in cuts and burns. This is when Donna reached out to a priest, who then brought in the Warrens. The Warrens discovered that the doll wasn't actually possessed at all. Instead, a demon was manipulating it, trying to get close to the girls in an attempt to possess one of them. No thanks. In at number 4, the Smurl Haunting. In between 1974 and 1989, a couple by the name of Jack and Janet Smurl, who lived in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, claimed that a demon inhabited their home. Jack and Janet began witnessing strange happenings, the likes of loud noises and bad odors. The torment continued to get worse. Their dog was thrown into a wall, their daughter was pushed down their stairs, and Jack claims to have been physically and sexually assaulted by the demon on multiple occasions. The Warrens didn't get involved in the case until 1986, and the reports were pretty disturbing. Ed claimed to see a dark mass form inside of the home, and that the temperature dropped severely. The demon even left them a message written on a mirror that read, "Get out." By 1987,
Wait,
the
wasn't
haunting
this
had
one
calmed down
made
to an
into a
extent,
movie?
Janet telling reporters that they still heard knocking and saw shadows occasionally. After the Smurls left the house, the new house owner told reporters in 1988 that she never encountered anything supernatural while living there. The Smurl haunting had generated a lot of press attention over the years, and there were a lot of doubts about the legitimacy of the Smurls' claims. And at number 3, the Perron family. You might recognize the Perron family as the story that is depicted in the first Conjuring film. Now, back in January of 1971, the Perron family moved into an old farmhouse, a 14-room building in Rhode Island.
I reckon it would have been so much creepier if the Annabelle doll in the movies was also something that didn't have
noises and small
rigid
piles of dirt
limbs.
appearing in previously clean rooms. The girls began noticing spirits around the house, most of which were harmless, but some were a bit more aggressive. Things got worse. The spirits would cause their beds to rise off the floor, and they would smell like rotting flesh. Carolyn researched the house and discovered that it had a long history of people dying from mysterious circumstances, with some hanging themselves in the attic and others drowning in the creek nearby. One spirit in particular, Bathsheba, was a spirit of a woman who lived on the property in the mid-1800s, who was a Satanist, and was somehow involved in the death of a neighbor's child. The Warrens visited the farmhouse multiple times, and on one occasion, Lorraine conducted a
Just 'cause they were a
seance, which led to
Satanist
Carolyn
doesn't
becoming
mean they were a
possessed
bad
and speaking
person.
in tongues. The family, due to financial
they
strain, was
probably
forced to
were.
live in the house until 1980, but reportedly the hauntings had ceased by then. Up next, number 2, the Enfield Poltergeist. The Enfield Poltergeist is the story that appears in the second Conjuring film. In 1977, the Hodgson family, who lived in Enfield, England,
Oh, this
began
is the
to
one
see
I
and
thought
hear
the other one
strange
was.
things in their home, including a dresser sliding across one of the children's bedrooms. Toys would fly around the house and were burning hot to the touch. Loud knocking sounds shook the house, to the point where they had to call the police, believing that someone was trying to break into their home. The officer who came to the scene reported seeing a chair rise up into the air and move across the floor all on its own. Reporters from the Daily Mirror were also present at one point, and they claimed that they had also witnessed some of these strange occurrences. The situation really started to attract some solid attention when one day, the iron fireplace in one of the bedrooms upstairs was ripped out of the wall. Warrens came to the house and upon investigating declared that there was a demonic presence there. While the film depicts an almost exorcism, the real-life story is quite different. 2 years after the hauntings began, they abruptly stopped. And finally, in at number 1, Amityville. Even if you're unfamiliar with the specifics of this story, you've probably at some point heard the name Amityville in correlation with horror or hauntings. Amityville is a real-life place, approximately 30 miles outside of New York City. And back in 1974, a 23-year-old man named Ronald J. DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family with a rifle while they slept. 13 months afterwards, a new family purchased the house, the Lutz family, who stayed there for 28 days before fleeing. The Lutz family claimed that their house was haunted by a violent spirit. After their first night there, the family began constantly getting into arguments. Their daughter started to spend all of her time playing with an imaginary friend named Jody. Awful odors emanated from all over the house, house, and black stains started to appear on various surfaces. Flies started to appear in one of the upstairs rooms that they had turned into a sewing room. George Lutz, the father, would always wake up at 3:15 a.m., the time in which the DeFeo murders occurred according to the police. Family members started to appear aged and levitate. So finally they got a priest to walk through the house. But the family still continued to be terrorized. 20 days after the family left the house, the Warrens were called in to investigate. While they were there, Ed was violently pushed to the floor and Lorraine was overwhelmed by a demonic presence and saw the psychic impressions of the DeFeo family's bodies laid along the floor. Further research into the house revealed that it was actually the site used by a man named John Ketchum in the early 1900s who practiced black magic. They also captured an image of a boy peering from the second floor of the house. The Lutzes eventually sold all of their belongings, some to the Warrens, and relocated to California. Starting us off at number 5,
I don't blame them.
Here we have
I wouldn't want to live
Warren
anywhere near there
Warren
either.
that's fairly recent, talking about the real-life Annabelle doll. Doll, which was given to a college student by her mother as a gift, turned out to be a doll that was manipulated by a demon in an attempt to possess her or her roommate. The events surrounding the doll and why Ed and Lorraine were brought in are eerie at best. It began with the doll moving around the house on its own, and even resulted in one of their friends being brutally attacked by it, with the doll strangling him. Here's what Lorraine had to say about it when the second film inspired by the doll, Annabelle Creation, came out.
Evil needs a body to go into, and if you're vulnerable, it's going to be you.
And at number 4, Amityville. Here we have a recording of Ed and Lorraine retelling their experience with
the spirit of a former inmate who died in a tragic accident while working in the prison's bell tower. Visitors have reported hearing his screams and seeing his ghostly figure in the tower. The prison has been featured in several films and TV shows, including The Shawshank Redemption and Ghost Adventures, which of course only worked to further popularize its reputation as a haunted location. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Lake Hope Furnace. The Lake Hope Furnace in Ohio has a dark and haunting history that has given rise to many tales of paranormal activity. The furnace was built in the mid-19th century to process iron ore mined in the area. Many workers lost their lives due to the dangerous working conditions, and the furnace was shut down in the early 1900s. Over the years, visitors to the area have reported strange occurrences, including unexplained noises, sudden drops in temperature, and ghostly apparitions. Many believe that the spirits of the workers who died at the furnace still haunt the area. One of the most famous stories associated with the Lake Hope Furnace is that of a ghostly woman in a white dress who is said to wander the grounds. Legend has it that the woman was the wife of a worker who was killed in an accident at the furnace. She is said to be searching for her husband's lost wedding ring, which she believes is still somewhere on the property. Another ghostly tale is that of a former worker who is said to have lost his life here but was never able to leave. Visitors have reported seeing his spirit coming by the furnace in order to light it. While he carries a lantern in one hand, if anybody gets too close to him, it's said he vanishes into the darkness. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Werewolf of Defiance. The legend of the Werewolf of Defiance in Ohio dates back to the early 1900s. According to the story, a man who lived in the woods near Defiance was rumored to have transformed into a werewolf on nights of the full moon. Local residents claimed to have heard howls and seen a large wolf-like creature lurking in the shadows. Some even reported close encounters with the creature, which was said to be larger and more ferocious than any normal wolf. Despite numerous attempts to hunt the creature, the werewolf was never caught. The legend of the Werewolf of Defiance continues to be a popular topic of discussion in the area, and many believe that the creature still roams the woods to this day. Whether the Werewolf of Defiance was a real creature or simply a product of local folklore remains a mystery. In our number 6 spot today, we have Satan's Hollow. Satan's Hollow is a drainage tunnel located in Blue Ash, Ohio, and it has been long rumored to be the site of supernatural activity. According to legend, the tunnel was once used by a group of Satanists who performed dark rituals and sacrifices within its walls. People who have ventured into the tunnel have reported seeing strange symbols and hearing ghostly whispers. Some have even claimed to have witnessed apparitions of demons and other supernatural beings. The legend of Satan's Hollow has attracted many curious visitors over the years, and some have reported strange experiences such as unexplained temperature drops and sudden feelings of unease. Despite warnings from authorities and the dangers of the tunnel itself, and the fact that the tunnel is technically private property, many continue to seek out the site in search of thrills and scares, looking for the creature behind the most haunting tale of all, the Shadow Man. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Ridges. Athens Lunatic Asylum, also known as the Ridges, is a former mental institution located near Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. It has a long history of ghostly tales and supernatural occurrences. According to legend, the asylum was a site of brutal treatments and patient mistreatment, leading to the creation of restless spirits haunting the halls. There have been reports of shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and inexplicable noises, leading many to believe that the spirits of former patients still linger within the abandoned building. One of the most famous stories is that of Margaret Schilling, a patient who disappeared in 1978 and was found later dead in a hidden attic room. Her decomposing body left a stain on the floor that is said to be impossible to remove. The asylum has become a popular destination for paranormal investigators and thrill seekers, with many claiming to have had chilling experiences while exploring the abandoned institution. Despite its dark history and eerie reputation, the Athens Lunatic Asylum remains an important reminder of the past and the need for compassionate and ethical treatment of those suffering from mental illness. In our number 4 spot today, we have Eugene. This is less of a creepypasta and more of an enduring mystery, and it all starts with a John Doe story. In 1929, the body of an older male appeared on the side of the road in Ohio. No one was ever able to identify who the man was, no one knew where he came from, or really had anything to go on. The only possible clue he had on him was an address, but it just led to a vacant lot. The closest neighbor to the address was named Eugene, so they decided to call this unidentified man Eugene as well. This is where a bit of a twist comes in. Instead of burying him, they decided to keep Eugene on display as a roadside attraction. Truly wish I was making that up, because first of all, Eugene deserves better than that, but also, who wants to see a dead body as a tourist attraction? For 35 years, Eugene was put on display until he was finally laid to rest. This is what has led his tombstone to read, Eugene, found dead in 1929, buried in 1964. To this day, we still don't quite know who Eugene was, where he came from, or what his story truly was. In our number 3 spot today, we have Beaver Creek.
I can't help but feel sorry for that bastard.
Park in Ohio is a popular destination for outdoor enthusiasts, but it is also the home to a very spooky urban legend. The park is said to be haunted by the ghost of a woman who drowned in the creek many years ago. According to the legend, the woman's body was never found, and her ghost now wanders the park searching for her lost family. There are also reports of strange noises and ghostly apparitions in and around the park's historic buildings, such as the Gaston's Mill and the log cabins. Some visitors have reported feeling a sense of unease or being watched while exploring the park, particularly at night. Another one of the most well-known ghost stories associated with Beaver Creek State Park is the legend of the headless motorcyclist. According to the legend, a man lost his head in a motorcycle accident on the road that runs through the park. His ghost now rides his motorcycle through the park looking for his missing head. Some visitors claim to have seen the ghostly figure on his motorcycle, while others have reported hearing the sound of a motorcycle engine revving in the distance. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Coin Mansfield incident. What is a good old list of legends and spooky stories without a very real UFO incident, and perhaps one of the best known UFO sightings to take place in the state of Ohio. The Coin Mansfield helicopter incident occurred on October 18th, 1973, when 4 members of the Ohio Army National Guard were flying in a helicopter over Mansfield, Ohio. Suddenly, they encountered a large metallic disc-shaped object that was hovering in the sky. The object began to move towards the helicopter, causing the crew to take evasive maneuvers. Despite their efforts, the object continued to follow them, eventually passing overhead and disappearing into the distance. The crew reported the incident to their superiors, and an investigation was launched by the military and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. The incident received significant media attention, and it remains one of the most compelling UFO sightings on record. What makes this incident particularly intriguing is the credibility of the witnesses. The crew were all experienced pilots with military training, and their account of the incident was corroborated by radar data and other witnesses on the ground. Despite extensive investigations, no satisfactory explanation has ever been offered for what they saw that day. And finally, in our #1 spot today, we have Gore Orphanage. Gore Orphanage is an abandoned building located in Vermilion, Ohio, that has long been the subject of haunting tales and urban
it does
legends.
look like a
According to
creepy,
legend, in the early 1900s,
building.
a fire broke out in the building, killing everyone inside. The ghosts of those lost to the fire are said to haunt the surrounding woods and the building, and visitors have reported hearing the sounds of children's laughter and cries. Some versions of the legend claim that the orphanage was actually a satanic cult site where humans were sacrificed in bizarre rituals. Others claim that the place was actually just a place where real, non-magic or demonic related horrors took place. Despite the lack of evidence to support these claims, the legend of Gore Orphanage persists and has inspired numerous ghost hunters and paranormal investigators to explore the abandoned building. However, it is important to note that the building is private property and trespassing is illegal, okay? So don't say I didn't warn ya.
And we're kicking off this list with a very recent Ohio Bigfoot report. This one is detailed on the BFRO, or the Bigfoot Field Researchers website, where there are tons of different eyewitness reports of the elusive beast. But this is a good one to start off with because it just happened back in January of this year. On January 22nd, on a snowy afternoon in Warren County, Ohio, a family reported seeing a big creature standing near a bike path while they were driving down the road. The father of the family wrote, "As we were driving along State Route 350 towards State Route 123, south of Oregonia, we came to the Loveland bike trail that runs next to the Little Miami River. As I slowed down near the bike path crossing, we looked out the passenger side of the car and saw a large black figure standing a distance up the bike path facing the river. While it was snowing, the ground was covered with at least 3 inches of snow, so it didn't appear that someone would be on the bike path biking or walking the trail. The weather was not ideal for anyone to be hunting or walking on the path at the time. The figure appeared to have come from the woods and was walking towards the river." He also described the figure as having no obvious clothing pattern, being consistently dark, and that his wife and 2 teenage children also spotted it. There have apparently been at least 9 credible sightings of a supposed Bigfoot-like creature in the same area too. #9, Bigfoot howls. In this video uploaded by We Do It Outdoors, we see our cameraman roaming through a forest in Lore City, Ohio. The sun is starting to set and we hear a series of strange, eerie howls and tree knocks. We Do It Outdoors seems to have started as a channel about maintaining lawns, but over the last few years, there have been a number of Bigfoot-related videos uploaded on there, one of which I may or may not be discussing later in the list. And whether they're real or not,
what makes you bring that up right now, Jay?
Pretty entertaining. We get some genuinely creepy sounds in this video. It definitely sounds like something or someone is howling in the distance. If I heard sounds like this while I was in the forest, I'd just turn right around immediately. This guy sticks around until it's like fully dark and the sounds just get louder and louder. Real or not, it's definitely a creepy video. #8, the Jefferson County report. Next up, I have another report detailed on the Bigfoot Field Researchers website. This incident was reported in July of 2021, still pretty recent, in Jefferson County, Ohio. A man describes finding a large footprint in his chicken coop, as well as all of his chickens having gone missing. He's quoted saying, "On July 9th at approximately 10 a.m., I noticed my 5 chickens were missing. The chicken coop was full of feathers, but no bodies or blood. I did a perimeter check and came across an extremely large footprint. I went back to the house and brought down a tape measure to the footprint and measured it and took pictures with the tape measure beside it. The footprint measured a length that was apparently 18 inches with a width of about 9 to 10
Sounds like
inches.
someone stole his
A Bigfoot
chicken.
investigator named Jim Thompson came to investigate the man's property and discovered more footprints that were about 4 feet apart from one another. That's about double the gait of an average person, by the way. On July 24th, a couple weeks after making his initial report, the man described hearing strange strange yelps coming from either end of his property as if they were yelping back and forth to each other. And he also said that on some nights he gets an eerie feeling that something is watching him. I have that almost every night too. At number 7, we have Susan Ferenchak. Suzanne Ferenchak is a former skeptic turned Bigfoot enthusiast. After spotting a strange hairy creature near her home in Loudonville, Ohio, she had first spotted what she described as a big black-furred creature jump over the road. Not sure where said road was exactly or what type of road it was. If it was a highway road, that would be nuts. It was just a small dirt road. Still scary, not quite as impressive though. Suzanne has recorded audio of what she believes to be a Sasquatch while out in the wilderness near her home and has shared the 2-minute clip online. I gave it a listen. The quality, not great, but it's definitely eerie. You hear this distant howling. It definitely doesn't sound like a wolf. You also get some classic, whoops in there too, which a lot of Bigfoot researchers describe Sasquatches, making. Whether it's a genuine Bigfoot or not, I really just dig supposed Bigfoot audio. I just imagine being out alone in the woods at night and hearing some distant wail and whooping, and human or not, I mean, it would be pretty bone-chilling. All right, now I'm going to share the last report from the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. At least for this video anyway, there are tons on the site. This one was reported in Mahoning County, Ohio in July of 2021. Sorry if I'm messing up the pronunciation there. A man had described seeing a strange creature one evening after returning home with his wife, and is quoted as saying, "Tonight, yet another sighting by our pond. My wife and I were at dinner, and as we arrived home about 8:30 p.m., a large, fast gray and silver, light brown, covered in fur Bigfoot darted from the bushes in our front into the cattails in our pond on all fours. We both looked at each other and said, 'Did you just see that?' The subject was down low and bent in the middle as it moved. Unlike a dog, its undulating movement was not as fluid as a dog. It was not a bear. It appeared to be from 4 to 5 feet at the back and torso built like a barrel. When it went into the cattails, we were no longer able to see it." Number 5, the 1992 Grassman sighting. Grassman is again the name often given to the big ape-like creature or creatures that so many Ohio locals have spotted. And in this video, taken in eastern Ohio in 1992 by a man named Don Keating, he had spotted what looked like a large hairy creature walking into the forest. He managed to capture it on camera, and though the footage is very grainy and he was a fair distance away from it, there is definitely something walking into the forest. It's not the most convincing video evidence. It's hard to tell what you're looking at, but I do always find something eerie about old 90s VHS footage, and Keating seems to believe he saw some kind of large cryptid. So this video was featured on Monster Quest and features an interview with Keating describing what he saw and that he was a skeptic before this encounter. I always like it when they say they were skeptics before, because it's a bit more convincing that way. At number 4, we have the famous Minerva monster case. Back in 1970, a family living in Minerva, Ohio, reported what they believed to be a large Bigfoot
Did you just drop one to you?
Around their
smells
home.
like
the
you did.
Caton family reported rocks being thrown at their home by the creature and would spot large footprints in their backyard. But there are other reports of a mysterious creature in the area around the same time. Caton's neighbor also spotted the big hairy creature, as well as other residents of the area. The case became known as the Minerva Monster Case and gained rather significant media attention at the time. A former Stark County sheriff named Jim Shannon, who had responded to one of the Caton family's reports, is quoted as saying, "They were terrified. I will always believe them. They saw something. It's just what did they see?" This case has become the subject of a 2015 documentary called Minerva Monster, directed by Seth Breedlove, who we might be talking about in a bit. Next up, we have Mark DeWorth. Mark DeWorth is a Ohio Bigfoot investigator who has collected a fair amount of evidence in the 30 years he's spent on the hunt. He's got footprints, audio recordings, and of course his first-hand encounter, which was the catalyst for his research. The story is he'd been exploring an old strip mine in search of badger dens. He was followed out by something which soon stood up and looked at him, a big bipedal hairy creature. If that happened to me, I would not go looking for the creature again. I would move out of Ohio the next morning, probably. Thought of an 8-foot tall hairy beast roaming through the woods has always been kind of creepy to me, but having one stare at you in a cave, imagine looking through a cave thinking all you're gonna see that day is maybe some badgers, and then you're met with an 8-foot tall hairy ape man glaring at you. Only I'm allowed to find badgers in this cave. Whether the story is true or not,
these are my badgers.
Image. A video shared by Spectrum News shows Mark talking to several residents of Warren County, Ohio about his experience with this elusive creature, as well as hearing some of their first-hand accounts. He plays an audio recording, which sounds, again, pretty creepy. I love me some Bigfoot audio recordings. Anyway, Mark DeWorth has been interviewed on tons of podcasts discussing his Sasquatch experiences, so seek those out if you're interested. And at number 2, we have the Seth Breedlove encounter. Seth Breedlove is a filmmaker who's gone on to shoot a series called The Bigfoot Project, which you can find on a YouTube channel called Small Town Monsters. Before he had his first encounter, Seth described himself as a skeptic. In a YouTube video uploaded by Ed Ballant, Seth recounts the time he first encountered what he believes to be a Bigfoot. Seth had been riding down the countryside of Minerva, Ohio, when he spotted what looked to be a large bipedal creature with brown hair running through a clearing on a hill about 50 yards away. And it was fast, clearing the space in less than a second. One of the things that really stuck out to Seth most was the creature's very noticeable musculature, especially in the bicep area. Listening to Seth talk, he doesn't sound like he genuinely believes what he saw. He doesn't seem like he's making anything up on the spot or anything. Whether it was indeed the missing link or something more benign, he definitely did see something. And coming in at our number 1 spot is the Salt Fork footage. This video, once again uploaded by the YouTube channel We Do It Outdoors, is only 10 minutes long, but there's a lot going on with this one. So 2 men were exploring Salt Fork State Park in eastern Ohio, and after hearing some strange noises, they happened to capture footage of what looks to be a large bipedal hairy animal. We have a few different pieces of evidence in this video. We have handheld footage of the creature moving through the trees. We have some drone footage, lots of sounds too. It's a very meaty video. Now, could it be a big guy in a suit? Look, it can always be a big guy in a suit, but I gotta say, if it is a suit, it's not a bad one. It's pretty good. It looks like it has some bulk to it. It doesn't look like just one of those generic gorilla suits you can pick up at Spirit Halloween. And what I like here is that the footage is clear. He's not relying on shaking the camera around or making the video extra grainy to try and obscure the image. And just for those reasons alone, I like this video, even if it isn't real. We also hear some vocalizations going on here, so like I said, it's just a lot happening. Check this one out over at We Do It Outdoors.
That one looks interesting.
Starting off with number 10, we have Laughing Jack. Laughing Jack is a clown-type creature with long arms and a creepy big smile, which is always plastered on his face. The clown can be seen wearing baggy pants with striped socks. He is a fashion trendsetter, to say the least. Now, Jack's goal is to befriend children and entrust them before killing them. Reports have said kids go around talking about Jack as their imaginary friend. Once the children fall into Jack's trap, he would slice their stomachs open and fill it with candy.
Oh, yummy.
Disgusting human piñata. Who do you think would win in a fight? Laughing Jack or Pennywise the Clown? My vote is for Pennywise. For number 8, we have Charlie Charlie. Have any of you heard the saying, Charlie Charlie, are you there? Well, it's part of a game designed to apparently contact the ghost Charlie. Charlie was a young boy who tragically passed away. Some people say he passed away in a car accident, others say he took his own life. And he has now come back to haunt whoever contacts him. Players that play this game are supposed to place 2 pencils overlapping each other to form a cross. The pencils are placed on top of a piece of paper that have 2 sections, yes and no. After they summon Charlie, apparently they can communicate to him through this contraption, using only yes or no questions. Charlie's end goal is to terrorize and harm anyone who plays this game. I wouldn't define it as a game because it's not fun. It's scary and dumb. Don't play it. In 7th place, we have Slender Man. Slender Man gained increasing popularity several years ago, and as a result, several games, stories, and movie have been made. Now, Slender Man can be compared to the Boogeyman. He is an extremely tall creature, sometimes seen with other tentacle-type arms protruding from his body. He wears a classy, nice tux. Like, seriously, I don't know how he found one that is like so form-fitting and like long enough for his body, but like, I guess he got it custom made. And the creepiest part is that he is faceless. He is just a pale, expressionless creature. Now, Slender Man is known to primarily prey on young children, often kidnapping them and either murdering them or convincing them to harm others. Mr. Slendy can be seen lurking around areas such as the park, the forest, and alleyways. Now, Slender Man, for as we know, is just made up by a man named Eric Knudsen. However, in 2014, 2 young girls stabbed a victim in the woods, claiming that they were carrying out a murder on Slender Man's behalf. Fortunately, the victim survived, but this goes to show how influential the internet is on young individuals. Coming in at number 6, we have Momo. In 2019, a viral picture spread around the internet. I'm sorry for the image that you're about to see because it gives me the creeps looking at it. This photo features a girl with huge bulging eyes, straight greasy hair, and a thin large mouth. Apparently, this girl's name is Momo, and she is a demon or ghost that's goal is to get people to harm themselves. Now,
I believe this one was like
type challenge started going around on apps such as WhatsApp or even Snapchat, where apparently Momo would command people to do tasks that would lead them to commit acts of extreme violence. Other people said that
if I
Momo
was
would
trying
appear
to
in
get
kid
people to
shows
do
like Peppa Pig
extreme
or
acts,
in
they
popular
wouldn't be
games like
violence, they would
Fortnite
be
to try and attract kids.
But I don't want to know
Don't
that.
worry, this
I
is a
just want you to
hoax.
do it.
I did tons of research because I was so scared. I wanted to make sure that it was indeed fake. So you're welcome. So the picture of Momo is actually a sculpture made by the Japanese artist Kazuki Asawa. He titled this piece of art Mother Bird. When people saw the photo, that's when they started creating a story surrounding it. However, apparently some were influenced by this hoax and have actually died from playing it. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Jeff the Killer. This story and the disturbing photo associated with it used to give me nightmares as a kid. Like, I would be terrified to open my curtains with the fear that Jeff was just lurking on the outside of my window. So apparently the story goes like this. Jeff was a young boy whose face was burned off with acid and then he was set on fire. His face became extremely terrifying looking, but he actually loved his new appearance. He also tried burning out his own eyelids and carved a smile up his cheeks. He often is seen wearing dark jeans and a white hooded sweatshirt that's stained with blood. Jeff hides in children's closets, tells them to go to sleep, and then when they do, he creeps out and murders them. In our 4th spot, we have Bloody Mary. Now, I'm not talking about the cocktail here. I wish I was. I feel like most people have heard of this story. It was really popular when I was a kid. In fact, I was stupid enough to try it with my friends, and thank gosh, nothing happened. So this legend surrounds a ghost named Bloody Mary.
Episode with
it spooks me just even saying her name. Now, it is said that if you enter the bathroom, turn off the lights, and look in the mirror and chant her name 3 times, nice try, I'm not gonna say it for the video, then she will appear in the mirror and potentially scratch you. Now, there are a lot of variations of the story. Some say you must be holding a lit candle, others say you need to spin around 3 times while saying her name, or even by saying, Bloody Mary, I believe in you. I swear guys, if I get haunted for just talking about these stories, I'm not gonna be happy. This is the one story that I kind of believe just because my friends have done it and have witnessed paranormal stuff. But who knows? All I know is that I will never do it. Coming in at number 3, we have the girl in the photograph. Word from the wise, if you find a random photograph on the ground, don't go picking it up. Let me explain why. This legend revolves around a beautiful girl that changes her appearance based on her victim. Basically, whoever finds the photograph of her will become infatuated with her. She uses her beauty to brainwash her victims and then leads them to their death. In the photo, this girl also changes depending on how many people she kills. For example, if she killed 3 people, she will eerily be shown holding up, you guessed it, 3 fingers. In our 2nd spot, we have I Feel Fantastic. In 2004, a video titled I Feel Fantastic was uploaded to YouTube. This video features a very scary mannequin type thing named Tara. Tara can be seen with her body completely still, but just her head and lips moving to the song that plays in the background. Now, Tara is not the best singer, and it sounds like a voice simulator type thing with high-pitched beats in the background. The song alone is very agitating to listen to. The robot lady thing was created by John Bergeron, who programmed her to sing the song he writes. Some of the lyrics include "Please leave" and "Run, run, run." The shots of Tara are intercut with her in different outfits and outdoor shots. Now, people believe that the creator of Tara has committed murder and that Tara is wearing the victim's clothes. They also believe that the outside random shots that don't seem to tie into the video actually show where the victims' bodies are buried. The creator also left a cryptic message in the video's description. He makes a reference to Pygmalion. Pygmalion was a Greek god who thought women were tainted and unworthy of love. He then decided to build his ideal woman and fell in love with her. People believe Tara was once the woman he loved, and when he found out she had too many flaws, he murdered her and created this robot thing to replace her. And in our number
it looks like someone that's put up too many layers of latex makeup on.
This story gives me the heebie-jeebies, like zoinks. This legend surrounds a website known as blindmaiden.com. I suggest not going on that website. Please, for your own good. Apparently, it is said that you have no access to this website unless you enter at exactly 12 a.m. while being alone in a room with the lights off. If you succeed to meet this criteria, then you will be allowed to access the site. Now, on this site, it is said that you will encounter disturbing images of boys and girls without eyes and with distorted faces. It is said that you have to be careful not to click anything by accident, or else you will face the consequences. On this website, you will have two options: accept or decline. If you accept, then the monitor will change and display someone approaching your house. Then the video footage will change again, and you will see a live footage of your back as you feel someone behind you. If you turn around, the maiden will rip your eyes out and take your picture. You will then be a part of the numerous other photos of eyeless individuals on the website. My question is what if you just don't turn around and face her? Like, she's there, you can feel her there, you just don't turn around. Now, if you choose decline, then you are safe from the maiden. Starting off at the top of our list, we have Mr. Widemouth. Now,
I think that's a good spot to stop. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop now for today. There's my cozier page, going on to Twitch to find someone to raid. It does sound weird, doesn't it, Miss Harley? But it happens from time to time that weird things are entertaining. It's just not doing it for me right now, and I've got to do stuff very soon, so I should probably find somebody to raid. Who should I raid? Tauntless? Okay. Tauntless works. Just let me do the thing and do the thing. There we go. There's that. Tauntless. Last time I raided someone, they didn't even give me a shout out. But that's not why I do this. I do this to make new friends.
I don't think I've ever been up here though. Would be up here.
If that's not doing it for you, I can help. Oh, I'll keep that in mind.
Feeling it might be on the side.
But sadly, we've got an inspection on Thursday, so I've got to do some cleaning.
Is it down there? I think it is.
Otherwise, I'm going to piss off my housemates.
Might be.
Not doing anything.
Probably is.
Or
not. You found it.
Yeah. Let's get this raid message underway, shall we?
Yay! So we're gonna go through this whole tunnel and kill the boss, and we can find our boy.
Because I like
probably got kidnapped by these motherfuckers.
And I'm a fire spirit, so it makes sense. Thank you, Jade. I do appreciate that. Pyrussy because I'm sassy. I'm sassy.
How the fuck am I?
And also this way I can
that?
upload a video before.
Where am I supposed to go? Oh.
Oh, thank you for that. Paste, paste, paste. Paste, paste, paste. Paste the linkies. Paste the cheekies.
Oh, nice.
Hooray! Nice. Mine is 34,000.
Okay.
Hooray, hooray.
Here is the raid message that I would really much appreciate if you guys copied and pasted it into Tauntless's chat once you get over there. I'm gonna get the raid underway.
Man went splat.
Then
Sure,
I'm gonna...
How is it not like... I'm surprised there wouldn't be some like fucking like maybe rare... It'd probably be exploited or something like that. Some like fucking thing that like makes it so you can survive longer falls. I think I might have read something actually. Maybe there is some shit out there. But it probably doesn't help that much. If it is real.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. Seriously,
Yeah, I
you
explored
guys
this
mean the
area
world
way
to me.
early on.
I wish I could express how much you mean to me.
Ready for it.
You make me feel connected, and I can't thank you guys enough for that.
Yo, bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My next
no worries,
stream
Dark Knight.
is
Hopefully
the
I'll see
day
you
after
around. I'll be
tomorrow.
streaming again after like 3 days.
So after my
So,
appointment
we'll
with the
see ya.
specialist, I'll have to let you guys know how that goes.
keep up the great work.
Fingers
you're
crossed they
#1.
can help me with my pain, because if they can, oh my god, it would be
Slay
amazing.
your days as they come.
But yeah. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope to see you the day after tomorrow. And yeah, I'm Pyra Z, your little fireflower. Now let's